Chapter 101. Time, 3 days later. Location, confidential. In an underground experimental factory, Chen Hui is walking. In front of him is Nick Fury, beside him is a bald old man with thinning hair on the left, and on the right is a capable woman in S.H.I.E.L.D uniform with short dry black hair. He knew the bald old man. He was the doctor of astronomy who was with Thor in New Mexico, Dr. Savig. Another S.H.I.E.L.D female agent, Chen Hui, is not difficult to guess. It should be Nick Fury's right-hand man, S.H.I.E.L.D's level 9 agent, Maria Hill. Dr. Chen Hui, I think you should like your laboratory, there is everything you need. 17 Hill looked at Chen Hui with a very interested expression. To be honest, in her opinion, Chen Hui is really too young. A 16 or 17-year-old kid like Chi San should still be working hard to go to college, right? However, the current Chen Hui is in existence enough to give S.H.I.E.L.D. director a headache, the 5th smartest person in the world, even a man comparable to half of the Hydra organization. This had to make Maria Hill look at Chen Hui with admiration. However, on the surface, Chen Hui seems to be gentle and elegant, delicate and harmless, a proper little fresh meat. After watching Hill for a long time, he even liked this little guy who always slightly raised the corners of his mouth and showed a confident smile. At the same time, I couldn't believe that there was such a powerful force behind such a young boy. Hanmer Industries, Stark Industries, God's Domain, are all related to him. That's not to mention, in the investigation of S.H.I.E.L.D, they even captured cobweb horse traces. Back then, the mysterious strongman who fought against Magneto, Green Titan and even destroyed the Destroyer also had some inexplicable connections with this Chen Hui. Relationship. In a word, Dr. Chen Hui is unfathomable and must not be provoked. This is the final conclusion of the professionals in their S.H.I.E.L.D after an in-depth evaluation. Dr. Chen Hui, I have known you for a long time. Last time I saw you from a distance in New Mexico, but unfortunately I didn't have the chance to talk to you. To be honest, I have not only studied astronomy, but I have also studied biology, but it was too difficult. And I was still a little dizzy, so I finally had to give up. Dr. Savage sighed. Dr. Savage, don't be humble. Your research in many fields will amaze countless geniuses. Chen Hui waved his hands and smiled, I also admire your research. This time when you study Rubik's Cube, you focus on the direction of space structure, while I focus on the influence of Rubik's Cube on human organisms. Although the two are somewhat different, but in my opinion, different routes lead to the same goal, and we need to have a lot of in-depth exchanges, one that's definitely. Dr. Savage said happily. Don't worry, the labs of the two of you are together anyway, you can communicate as you like, you can hug and sleep together. Fury turned around and said with a smile, oh, by the way, Dr. Chen Hui, I heard that you went to God's Domain, could you share your experience there with us? Definitely yes. As long as you don't think I'm bragging, I can tell you everything I've seen. Chen Hui smiled happily. He definitely doesn't tell the truth, but that doesn't stop him from bragging. Just like this, while blowing with everyone, they walked towards the deepest laboratory, and soon a few people arrived at the destination. An experimental laboratory about half the size of a football field. There are all kinds of experimental instruments inside, which are very comprehensive, and can even be said to have everything that one expects to find, not much inferior to Chen Hui's own laboratory. However, what caught Chen Hui's attention the most was not this laboratory, but in the center of the laboratory, a radar-like instrument, in the middle of which, a blue crystal was shining brightly, and it was very attractive. Attention! Without a doubt, this is Tesseract. Chen Hui walked in front of Tesseract, his eyes gleaming. Tesseract, space gem. Judging from the current situation, it should not be fully awakened, but since Gwen can pass through a trace of energy elements in Tesseract, that is, the new elements, so that communicating with the power of the space gem, maybe if Gwen gets close to this thing, some special changes will happen. Chen Hui couldn't help thinking. Gwen, and Tesseract, should have some special connection. Otherwise, after contacting that brand new element, they would not suddenly gain a little bit of power from the space gem in Tesseract. It seems like Gwen, find a chance to let Gwen come here. Chen Hui secretly decided in his heart. Thinking of this, he took out a fully transparent touchscreen device similar to a mobile phone from his body, pointed it at the Tesseract, and then shook his hand slightly. Swish! Suddenly a virtual tesseract was projected from the touch-screen device, and a 3D stereoscopic effect appeared in midair. Seeing this, everyone's eyes flashed slightly. Dr. Savage's eyes lit up, and he immediately came to Chen Hui's side, looked at the virtual tesseract carefully, and said in admiration, "Dr. Chen Hui, I have to say that such a device is very important for researchers." "Say, dream stuff, is this really full simulation virtual projection? Oh god, it's amazing." "Haha, I can't say it's full simulation, but it's still possible to simulate 90%, which is enough for our preliminary research." Chen Hui laughed. "That would be great." Dr. Savage sighed in admiration, and then fell into the research unknowingly, discussing the structure of the Rubik's Cube with Chen Hui, fascinated. Seeing this, Fury and Hill retreated tactfully. 3.9 You are fully assisting Dr. Chen Hui and Dr. Savage's research, and you can synchronize the research progress with me at any time. Fury said to a researcher. "Understood, Chief." The researchers responded immediately. "Follow Fury and Hill away." The two of them didn't see it. Behind the researcher, on a mirror, a figure suddenly appeared, looking at Tesseract, with a smile on his mouth. "Study on Tesseract? Good, good, this will be a chance for me, Loki, to finally rise up. He. Chapter 102. Okay. Chen Hui was studying the Tesseract with Dr. Savage, suddenly frowned, and looked at the mirror where Loki's figure had just appeared. There is nothing on it. Chen Hui narrowed his eyes slightly, took a deep look at the mirror, and felt a ray of fading remnants on it. Loki's consciousness is broken. Loki, this guy is really interesting. There are consciousness remnants everywhere. This is a unique surveillance method. I might as well learn it in the future. Chen Hui rubbed his chin and smiled amusedly. Suddenly, a spiritual idea wrapped around chakra and spread away. Even in it, the last trace of his divine power chakra was integrated into it, condensed into a brand, and at the moment when Loki's residual consciousness disappeared, it quietly attached to it. Even with Loki's powerful spiritual power, he didn't notice it. Until Chen Hui tampered with his consciousness. He is imitating the example. Since Loki can leave a consciousness remnant to monitor, he can also leave a mark on Loki's remnant to monitor Loki's actions. Moreover, the supernatural power of chakra is extremely mysterious, and it contains Odin's supernatural power, which Loki will never discover. But in this way, Chen Hui's last trace of divine power chakra was also exhausted. If you want to use divine chakra in the future, you can only wait for the research of Odin's blood to make a breakthrough. Since Loki has his eye on Tesseract, it just so happens that I'm a bit constrained in researching Tesseract in S.H.I.E.L.D's laboratory. At the very least, it's hard to find a way to bring Gwen in without exposing Gwen's ability. It's harder. Chen Hui's thoughts flashed, but if Loki comes to make trouble, then I can just take advantage of the chaos and take the Tesseract away, and then I can research how I want. There will be no restrictions, and if the Tesseract is lost, I will also be able to do it. No one will suspect me. A plan slowly took shape in Chen Hui's mind. He imprinted the supernatural chakra on Loki's consciousness, just to monitor Loki's movements. Although this imprint cannot perceive Loki's specific actions, it can read part of his thoughts. Once he takes action, then Chen Hui will know immediately. And before that, he can make sufficient preparations to seize the Tesseract in the chaos. Call. This plan flashed in his mind, and soon Chen Hui devoted himself to Tesseract as a graduate student again. Time passed day by day. The research progress of Tesseract is extremely slow, and it is much more difficult to study its impact on biological genes than its impact on space architecture. After all, Tesseract contains space gems, not mind gems that have effects on the human body. A gemstone with great impact. Over the past few months, he has extracted some limited bioenergy programs from Tesseract, and made some small enhancements to his ninjutsu, especially the genjutsu. After devouring Loki's remnants, Chen Hui has been able to perform some simple illusions under his research. The bioenergy program in Tesseract is used to create some simple spatial overlays, which can integrate well with illusion and can also enhance his other attack methods. But other than that, there is no other progress. It's not that there's really nothing else that can be researched from Tesseract, but in S.H.I.E.L.D, Chen Hui will naturally not go all out to research. In addition, there is another important reason, that is Tesseract hasn't really woken up yet. He didn't need to go all out to study a Tesseract that hadn't awakened yet, that would just be a waste of time. On the contrary, Dr. Savage, with the help of Chen Hui, has made some major breakthroughs. Through Tesseract, he can open the door of space, communicate and absorb the energy in the universe. Although the gate of space was unstable, and only opened for 1/100th of a second, and then ended in failure due to the explosion of the instrument, it can still be regarded as a major breakthrough, so Fury invited them to have a good meal pause. In addition to studying Tesseract, Chen Hui did not let go of the research on Odin's blood. However, Odin's genes are not Thor's genes. Not only are they extremely complicated, but the magic seal contained in them is also extremely strong. Ability in ability is blocked. In this regard, Chen Hui did not feel a headache but became excited. To him, those magic seals are not only seals, but also huge amounts of treasures. If he can study them thoroughly, then his future achievements in the Rubik's Cube field will not be underestimated. It's just that there is no divine chakra to activate it now. Chen Hui can't undo these seals as easily as before, so Chen Hui absorbed some Tesseract energy under consideration, trying to see if he can activate it. The end result found, can be activated. This point completely cheered Chen Hui up. It seems that the Tesseract is not only the key to researching teleportation to God's domain, but also the key to unraveling the mystery of Odin's blood and allowing him to have endless chakra power. As a result, Chen Hui couldn't help but look forward to the day when Loki arrives. At the same time, in the following days of 707, Chen Hui moved the main battlefield of Odin's blood research from his own laboratory to the laboratory of SHIELD. Although S.H.I.E.L.D. has been monitoring his research activities, but with Chen Hui's means, as long as he doesn't make a big fuss and conduct a little research, it is still possible. In this way, time passed day by day. S.H.I.E.L.D. is busy working on Tesseract. And in the depths of the universe, on a mysterious planet, on this day, a guest suddenly ushered in. In the dark. In the void like an abyss, there are steel stairs with ferocious thorns on the edge, suspended in the air, and at the end of the stairs, a person wearing a green cloak and a golden helmet stretches out his hands, and takes a metal scepter. At its end, a blue gemstone shines brightly. Loki, my ally, you will lead the way as the pioneer, and we Chitauri will follow. Get the Tesseract, give me the Rubik's Cube, and we will help you occupy the small human world, and you will become the king there. Even the king of the entire god realm. A person shrouded in darkness had a deep and authentic voice. With pleasure, my ally. Loki took the scepter, and from the corner of his mouth, a wicked smile slowly erupted. Chapter 103. Night. The sky above the S.H.I.E.L.D. research base. Boom boom boom. A helicopter picked up a strong wind and landed. Phil Coulson was waiting below. He was wearing a pair of sunglasses, and around him, everyone was walking around in a hurry, or they were full of things, or they were collectively carrying something. Judging from this, it seems that a collective evacuation operation has been launched. Clang! The helicopter door opened, and two people stepped out of it. The first person was Maria Hill, and the man in black behind him was naturally the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury. How bad is it? Fury looked at the evacuated crowd around him, frowned, and said to Phil Coulson. Worst case scenario. Phil Coulson took off his sunglasses. It's just that we don't know anything about the situation, sir. No, strictly speaking, there should be a little more information to be learned. Just then, a young Asian man wearing sunglasses walked over from the crowd. Without a doubt, it was Chen Hui. He took off his sunglasses and said with a slight smile, I am the only one who understands this at the moment. Oh? Dr. Chen Hui, what have you learned? Fury looked over. It's very simple, this place is going to explode. Chen Hui said calmly, definitely, this is only the superficial situation. On a deeper level, it should be that the Tesseract has awakened. It tried to use its powerful power to communicate with the universe and open the way to the universe without the aid of instruments. The gate of the universe, as you know, children who have just woken up are generally willful. Tesseract is like this, but it just happens to have enough energy to destroy this place. Then according to your suggestion, what should we do next? Fury asked. He saw Chen Hui's calm expression, and knew that the other party should have a way to deal with it. It's easy, escape. A word from Chen Hui almost made Fury stagger and fall. Definitely, it's not a simple escape. In other words, it's a strategic retreat. Chen Hui threw Fury a fully transparent touch-screen phone. There are retreat routes for the entire base. I have assessed the dangers of these retreat routes. You can choose a retreat. Definitely, you have to wait to take Tesseract away. Besides, all the information about the second phase is in my it has already been backed up. I have ordered people to move the equipment away. You don't have to worry, just follow me to get the Rubik's Cube, and then leave. Fury caught the phone. Hearing Chen Hui's words, especially the second stage, he was taken aback for a moment, and then looked directly at Chen Hui. Don't look at me like that, Fury. Chen Hui shrugged and said with a smile, do you think you can hide a secret that uses Rubik's Cube energy to make weapons right under my nose? Chen Hui knows that Fury's ultimate goal in researching Tesseract is to use Rubik's Cube energy to make weapons and enhance the strength of SHIELD. Although Fury hid it well, with Chen Hui's ability, he easily got all the information to Min OK. Fury was helpless, he could feel the warning and threat in Chen Hui's conversation, reminding him not to think too carefully. After a moment of silence, he immediately replied to Chen, since you have already arranged everything, the next actions will all be according to your arrangement, and I will follow you. No problem. Chen Hui smiled slightly. Everything he does is purposeful. Now using the Phase 2 plan as a warning, Fury probably won't think about it anymore, and will just obediently follow his actions. And in this way, everything will perfectly fit into his plan. Call. Soon Fury followed him to where Tesseract was. And Phil Coulson and Hill went to lead the extraction team. In the laboratory, Dr. Savage was researching what was wrong with the Rubik's Cube. He held an energy tester in his hand and put the end in front of the Tesseract, but soon with the burst of energy in it, it was completely scrapped. Dr. Savage suddenly panicked. The face is bewildered and embarrassed. Seeing Fury and Chen Hui approaching, he immediately stepped forward and said, Sir, the Rubik's Cube is unstable now. Okay, I know everything, pack up, bring the Tesseract, and we'll leave now. Fury ordered very simply. What? It's nothing to worry about, Dr. Savage, we can't stay here any longer. Let's change to another place and conduct research on the Rubik's Cube another day. Let's retreat now. Fury moved like the wind, commanding the people present to leave as soon as possible. And Chen Hui came to the Rubik's Cube with a special box for Tesseract, ready to take it down. But at this moment, suddenly, the energy in the Tesseract surged, and a terrible coercion shrouded it, making everyone startled. Their eyes were blank for a moment, and then they saw, from the Tesseract, a blue energy beam suddenly shot out, blasting a shocking hole in the wall. In the diffuse spark smoke, one can faintly see a figure appearing in front of the big hole. Holding a scepter that looks like a short spear in his hand, with a green cloak behind him, his eyes are looking at everyone, especially at the Tesseract, with an evil and excited photo poison. Come out! This person is Loki. This. Fury opened his eyes wide, watching the scene in front of him in disbelief. The others were also stunned. As for Chen Hui, he fell to the ground in a state of embarrassment. When he saw Loki, he took the Tesseract directly and put it in the box without any hesitation. He stood up immediately, as if he was about to leave immediately. Boom clothes. But at this moment, a blue energy beam suddenly bombarded Chen Hui's body, causing him to stagger and fall to the ground, with black smoke rising from his back, and his life and death were unknown. Immediately, he picked up the box with one hand. Loki looked around at everyone, with a sneer on the corner of his mouth. The things in this box are very important to me, I advise you, don't try to confront me, otherwise, you will end up with this person, do you understand? Chapter 104. Call out. Before Loki could finish his sentence, a sharp arrow suddenly attacked him. With a movement of his figure, he avoided it. Immediately afterwards, a cold light appeared in his eyes, and he looked in the direction of the arrow. Sorry, I stood a little far away just now, I haven't understood what you said, can you say it again? A voice came from the direction Loki was staring at. There was a dark corner on the second floor. At the moment, a figure fell from this corner. It was an agent with a bow and arrow in his hand. The sharp arrow in his hand was always staring at Loki, his eyes full of coldness. He is a member of the future Avengers - Hawkeye. Barton agent. Hawkeye. Fury and Dr. Savage approached immediately, and other agents also took out their weapons and aimed at Loki. Seeing this, Loki sneered, hee, what I, Loki, usually only say once, so. I want to understand, unless you catch up with me. As he said that, Loki's figure moved, and he ran out quickly. Everyone was taken aback when they saw this scene. Chase! Fury ordered coldly. Everyone listened to the order, and immediately followed Fury towards the direction of 863 where Loki was fleeing. Wow! Soon, there was no one left in this laboratory. Oh no, there is one more person. That's at the moment, Chen Hui lying on the ground. Call! Seeing that everyone was leaving, Chen Hui's figure moved, and he stood up suddenly, looking in the direction of the crowd leaving, with a smile on the corner of his mouth. With a wave. Wow! A hazy mist around him appeared and began to dissipate. In some hidden corners, one can faintly see bone spurs as thick as a thumb dissipating with the mist, and on these bone spurs, there are faintly visible some strange lines appearing, and the brilliance on them is rapidly dimming. Soon, the surrounding scene became clear. Surprisingly, it is in the laboratory. It's just that everything is exactly the same as when it came, and it has not been damaged. The tesseract is still on the instrument and has not been taken down. In other words, all the previous scenes were actually nothing but an illusion. It is an illusion carefully arranged by Chen Hui these days. In fact, with Chen Hui's current illusion skills, it is still impossible to arrange such an illusion that everyone can fall into at the same time. But he has room. He had enough time to prepare slowly, the bones arranged in the corner, in fact, he had already placed there 2 months ago. It contains a special illusion bioenergy program. As long as the Chen Hui chakra is activated, these illusion bioenergy programs will send out fluctuations, and everyone around them will be constantly hypnotic ability. These hypnotic abilities are useless in a short period of time, but after a long time, slowly accumulating, they can be quietly integrated into a person's nerve center. Once Chen Hui activates the illusion, they will immediately fall into the illusion arranged by Chen Hui, and they will not be able to get out in a short time. And taking this opportunity, Chen Hui can take away the tesseract, and no one will suspect him. Now, just waiting for Loki to come. Chen Hui looked at tesseract quietly. Since Loki was blamed, it is natural for Loki to come to Earth. Otherwise, if Loki can't be found all over the world, Fury and the others will definitely be suspicious. And with Loki attracting the attention of S.H.I.E.L.D, Chen Hui will be able to study tesseract alone in the laboratory without worrying that Fury will come to him. And one more crucial point. That is Loki's scepter. He wants to grab it, because it also contains another infinite gems, Kuj, mind gem. When the time comes, I will not only have the space gem, but also the mind gem. As long as I have a little bit of research on these two, then I can get countless benefits. Thinking of this, Chen Hui couldn't help but feel anticipation. Obtaining 2 infinite gems at the same time, this kind of thing is quite cool when you think about it. Just thinking about it, suddenly the energy in the tesseract rioted, emitting countless energy pulses, and the power of the surrounding space changed drastically. Almost in the blink of an eye. A wave of energy gathered on the tesseract, turned into a blue laser, and suddenly bombarded in one direction, causing the space to distort immediately, turning into a vortex, followed by a larger energy wave spreading out from it. The whole scene is astonishing. It is necessary to raise the scepter in the hand to fight back. At the same time, Chen Hui's whole body's chakra energy surged up and merged into the frost battle suit. The ice attribute chakra, coupled with the bonus of the frost battle suit, suddenly a frenzied icy aura emanated from him. It spread out, and it spread throughout the laboratory in the blink of an eye. Caracalla. However, Chen Hui's eyes lit up. The strong icy aura swept over the moment the figure appeared in the space vortex, causing the figure to froze and its expression changed drastically. A frozen voice sounded. Boom! This person, it is Loki. He suddenly grabbed his scepter with one hand, followed by a huge force, causing the scepter to be snatched away in an instant. He stared closely at the direction where the space vortex was opened, and when he saw one of the figures appear, there was no hesitation at all, and the figure moved instantly. This scene immediately made Loki dumbfounded. But at this moment, especially the direction in which the space vortex opens. He was already exhausted when he landed on the Earth through the Tesseract's space power, but he didn't expect that he was attacked as soon as he landed, and he couldn't help being shocked and angry. The frost battle suit covered the whole body, and in an instant it turned into a black windbreaker, covering his face. After Chen Hui snatched the scepter away, he came to the place where the Tesseract was, packed it into a box, followed the whole person and ran towards the outside at high speed, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Only Loki was left standing there alone, staring blankly at his empty hands, looking like he wanted to cry but had no tears. This. Can anyone tell me what happened? Chapter 105. Loki never dreamed that he came to the earth with the scepter given by the Chitauri smugly, and was about to show off his skills, but he was robbed before he could see the surrounding environment clearly. Not to mention the scepter who directly snatched him away, it also froze him in place, his legs were completely sealed by a layer of ice. This almost made him want to cry, even more desperate than when he was in Asgard. But soon he discovered that this was not the thing that made him most desperate. Just when Loki was finally freed from the ice, there was a rumbling sound behind him, and he turned around to look, and his pupils shrank suddenly. I saw there, where the space vortex appeared before, a group of extremely unstable energy was surging crazily, looking like it was about to explode. Just the waves emanating from it were powerful enough to suffocate people, not to mention it is said that the core is capable. Once it explodes, it will definitely end in pieces. Loki's expression changed instantly. Without the slightest hesitation, they frantically fled outwards. But, it's too late. He hadn't escaped a few steps when suddenly the mass of energy surged violently, accompanied by an earth-shattering roar. The explosion spread, annihilating everything, destroying everything, swallowing Loki's figure, and the whole S.H.I.E.L.D research base was completely reduced to ruins. And at the moment, all personnel have been evacuated. Naturally, Chen Hui had already left. On the plane, Chen Hui looked at the scene of the explosion below, his eyes flickered slightly, his supernatural chakra had been imprinted in Loki's consciousness, and he could feel the existence of Loki's thoughts anytime, anywhere. And at the moment, in the violent explosion, he could no longer feel Loki's state of mind. That said, Loki is most likely dead. Do you died? Chen Hui frowned slightly. If Loki is dead and cannot attract the attention of S.H.I.E.L.D, then his future research on Tesseract will still appear a little passive. Just thinking about how to solve it, Chen Hui suddenly had a thought. He noticed that the imprint of his divine power chakra was rapidly disappearing, and at the moment of disappearing, he could vaguely see, in the ruins of the explosion, a figure in a distorted space, flashing away. Seeing this, Chen Hui was taken aback. Immediately after, the corners of his mouth rose slightly, revealing a funny smile. It seems that, as a god in myths and legends, he still has some abilities. In ruins, the flames lingered endlessly. The aftermath of the explosion is surging everywhere, and the heat is so hot that anyone who enters will be instantly cremated, and the entire space is distorted because of this. Suddenly, there seemed to be a vent opening, and these energy fluctuations, flames, and hot temperatures all concentrated towards one place, as if turning into a fire dragon, and finally came to a strange space amidst the roaring sound where the cracks are. This crack in the space shone with fiery red-hot light, and countless flames poured in one after another, like a huge mouth, devouring these destructive energies. And in it, a figure can be faintly seen. If Chen Hui were here, he would definitely be able to recognize that this figure was Loki. At the moment, he had a ferocious face, and his whole body was entwined with flames. Those fiery red lights were constantly distorted on his body, and finally turned into a strange green witch fire, which continued to burn, and finally merged into the inside Loki. At this moment, it seemed that he was no longer an evil god, but a Vulcan. Call. Finally, after all the flames died down, Loki jumped down from the dimensional rift. His face was pale and exhausted, but his eyes were shining like never before. Fortunately, my magic is strong enough to create a rift between dimensions, avoid the most core force in the explosion, and absorb. I got this energy and used it for me, which greatly enhanced my magic ability. Wow! As soon as he moved his hand, a ball of flame suddenly rose from his palm. Don't let me know who is the one who snatched the scepter and the tesseract, otherwise I will let him taste the pain that no one in this world can imagine. Let him sink into hell forever. With the explosion of the base, the tesseract disappeared, and there have been suspected Loki traces recently. In addition, Chen Hui was injured in this incident. S.H.I.E.L.D completely put Chen Hui aside, basically regardless of him. This is exactly what Chen Hui wanted. These days, his life is very leisurely. Knowing that he was injured, Gwen quickly put down the admission course at Imperial University and came to take care of Chen Hui every day. Tony and Banner also came to see him. Ever since Chen Hui began to study sensitive things like Odin's blood, Chen Hui sent Banner to Tony's side. After all, although they are good friends, some things are still known alone. Well, let others know casually, but it will cause many misunderstandings. 0 Like when he attacked Tony. This kind of thing is Chen Hui's decision to rot in his stomach anyway, who knows if Tony will go crazy after he finds out about it. Gwen, come with me to the lab today. On this day, Chen Hui suddenly said to the temperature controller. To the lab. Gwen wondered, what are you doing there? I have something to show you. Chen Hui smiled mysteriously. Soon the two came to the laboratory, and as the door opened, the lights inside turned on automatically, and the entire dark laboratory immediately turned into a white star. Welcome back, Doctor. Kaguya-kun's voice sounded. Kaguya-kun, take out item 18 and item 19. Yes, Doctor. Item number 18, number 19. When Gwen heard the words, curiosity suddenly surged in her heart. She really wanted to know what it was that made Chen Hui so mysterious. Following Chen Hui, Gwen came to the depths of the laboratory. On Chen Hui's desk, there are currently 2 items placed in a large silver box. Chen Hui first opened the number 18 item box. Gwen looked over curiously, and saw streaks of azure light shining out of the box, followed by a blue cube crystal appeared in front of her impressively. Chapter 106. This is. Gwen's eyes widened in surprise. Item 18 in the box is naturally Tesseract. At this moment, the Tesseract is shining brightly, and its light is much stronger than a few months ago. It is in the awakening state, and the Tesseract in the awakening state is completely different from the non-awakening state. At least the energy surge in it is not at a conceptual level. As soon as Chen Hui opened the box, especially when Gwen approached, he paid close attention to the changes of the Tesseract in the box, wanted to see if there was any reaction connection between the Rubik's Cube and Gwen. Chen Hui, what is this? It's so beautiful. Gwen's eyes were full of curiosity. The name of this thing is Tesseract. Chen Hui said, or, it's called 607 Space Gem. Gwen, do you still remember what I told you when you obtained the ability? I guess, the reason why you obtained the space ability, because there is an inexplicable relationship with the space gem, but it was just a guess before, and now I bring the space gem, we can do some experiments and tests to prove my guess. Gwen, come closer and grab my hand. Chen Hui said, beckoning. Okay. Gwen nodded, approached, and grabbed Chen Hui's palm. Her eyes gleamed, staring intently at the Tesseract. I don't know if it's a delusion or something, but she always feels that the Rubik's Cube is attracting her, which makes a kind of desire surge in her heart, a strong desire to crack it. Chen Hui was just about to pick up the Tesseract, but at this moment, the Rubik's Cube buzzed and moved a bit. Chen Hui was taken aback. Then he looked at Gwen. But the moment he looked at Gwen, he was even more stunned, because at the moment, Gwen was holding something in his other palm, and this thing, it was Tesseract. This. Chen Hui's gaze changed. Looking in the direction of the box, I saw that the Tesseract was gone. Then I quickly turned my head, looked at Gwen, and saw the blue light of Tesseract in Gwen's eyes, and the whole expression showed a kind of anticipation and longing, even. In Chen Hui's view, there are some weirdness. Chen Hui frowned suddenly, and said, Gwen, put the Tesseract down. Lay down. Gwen suddenly laughed, why did you put it down? Chen Hui, you took out this thing, didn't you just want to give it to me? What's more, this thing is so beautiful, it suits me so well, why should I want to let go? As he said that, Gwen's palm suddenly exerted force. Wow! The energy in the Tesseract suddenly surged violently, and traces of energy rays visible to the naked eye wound around Gwen's palm and penetrated in, causing an astonishing aura to spread from Gwen's body, stirring up the violent wind caused even the space to distort, causing the entire laboratory to vibrate slightly. Chen Hui's face darkened. He never expected that such a change would happen when Gwen approached Tesseract. But no matter what is playing tricks, trying to control Gwen is wishful thinking, even if it is a Tesseract, he will crush it with one foot. Gwen is his reverse scale, no one can touch it. Humph! Chen Hui's eyes turned cold, and he stopped. With a cold snort, a huge force suddenly surged up on his body, and the palm holding Gwen suddenly pulled back at the moment of this huge force, and was about to pull Gwen back. But Gwen, not moving at all. Chen Hui's eyes froze, and he was about to increase his strength, but at this moment, Gwen looked over, with a sneer at the corner of his mouth, raised the hand holding the Tesseract, and waved Chen Hui lightly. Wow! Suddenly the surrounding space distorted. Chen Hui only felt a gust of wind blowing beside him, and the scene in front of him changed in the next moment, and he came to the door of the laboratory in the blink of an eye. It's space transfer. Kaguya, seal the entire laboratory, turn on the highest alert, and also turn on the energy interference device and adjust the frequency to the peak value. Chen Hui ran to the depths of the laboratory, and quickly said to Kaguya-ji, finally, start the tracking scan, target, Gwen Stacy. Okay, doctor. The energy interference device has been turned on, the entire laboratory has been completely sealed off, the vibranium bone wall has been lowered, and the space interference fluctuations are continuously released outward, no one can break in, and no one can break out of the hospital. Tracking scan on, target, Gwen Stacy. The target was found, and the tracking scan has been locked. The target has huge amounts of energy fluctuations. Disruption effects are being greatly reduced. Alert! Alert! Whoosh! Chen Hui's figure flashed, and the frosty battle suit covered his body instantly, and then he flew towards Gwen. Soon saw Gwen. At the moment, Gwen's body at this moment was shining with extremely intense azure energy light, and it could be faintly seen that these lights continued to converge, and finally turned into a figure similar to a woman, who gave Gwen back to her body. Hold on. Woman. Chen Hui's eyes flashed brightly, this should be what Gwen said, the weird woman he met when he first obtained the ability, right? Humph. Since it appeared today, let's just stay. With a cold snort, Chen Hui moved his palm, and the chakra energy surged rapidly. The earth shook violently. 2.8 Immediately after that, huge bone spurs rose up from below, forming a surrounding trend, forming a bone spur prison. Every bone spur has violent chakra energy surging, releasing the fluctuations that interfere with the space, block Gwen to prevent the transfer of Gwen's space. At the same time, he waved his hand. Wow! From Gwen's body, the three-generation symbiont that belonged exclusively to Gwen quickly seeped out of her body and covered Gwen's whole body, making her tremble at this moment. Her expression seemed to wake up. She looked at Chen Hui, there was a little confusion in his eyes. Chen Hui moved extremely quickly. After finishing all this, his figure moved and quickly came to the bone spur prison. Following, he looked directly at the woman who was hugging Gwen from behind, and said coldly, "Who are you?" Chapter 107. The moment Chen Hui saw the weird woman, his eyes shrank slightly. Because this woman had no face, and she looked very scary. Even Chen Hui, at first glance, was taken aback and couldn't help frowning. He. The woman sneered, "Are you the root cause of the strong resistance in the host's consciousness? Or, simply kill you and erase all your existence in the space, then all the host's resistance will naturally disappear." Host. Chen Hui heard the word, Raiwan. But immediately after hearing that the other party was going to kill him, a dangerous light flashed in his eyes, and he also sneered, "Woman, it sounds like you are looking for a host. It is not good to look for someone, but you are looking for my Gwen. My family Gwen is not counted, seeing you like this and want to control her? You are so aggressive, this time, I will take this opportunity to erase your consciousness and make you a part of Gwen's power." Swish. Chen moved. Although she doesn't know what the hell this woman is, Chen Hui can tell that it should be a kind of cosmic energy like Phoenix Force, with some simple 22 consciousness of her own, and likes to find a host to store her power. The other party obviously has a great relationship with the space gem, maybe it is the materialization of energy in the space gem. Court death. Hearing Chen Hui's words, the woman became angry, and let out a scream, which turned into an incomparably violent azure blue energy flow and enveloped it. In it, one could faintly see a space vortex twisting and rotating, and even more so. It is a series of blue flashes that keep spinning, and the terrifying strangling power is continuously condensed in it. It is conceivable that once it is shrouded in, it will be the rhythm of being strangled in an instant. Humph! It's just in time. Seeing this, Chen Hui sneered. This woman is in the form of energy, and physical attacks should have negligible effects on her, so she can only use the same powerful energy to face her head-on. And it just so happens that what Chen Hui lacks most is chakra energy, because this energy, as his fighting spirit soars, is endless. Boom! Chen Hui pressed his left shoulder with his right hand and drew out a vibranium bone sword. Even at this moment, the chakra in the whole body exploded crazily, and all of them poured into the bone sword, causing the radioactive energy around the bone sword to rotate crazily, soaring suddenly, turning into an incomparably sharp energy blade, and the terrifying energy vortex shrouded by the woman collided. Stab! The entire bone sword suddenly sank into it, making an ear-piercing scream. Chen Hui immediately felt a powerful stagnation force, which was transmitted from the bone sword, and he couldn't help but concentrate slightly. The opponent's power is indeed related to the space gem, and it is really powerful. With his chakra energy, I think to fight against it, you need to have a stronger fighting spirit. Thinking of this, a light flashed in Chen Hui's eyes, and the fighting spirit in his heart began to rise rapidly. But suddenly he was taken aback. Because at this moment, the chakra energy around the vibranium bone sword was gradually retreated under the bombardment of the woman's power. In this way, the radioactive energy on the bone sword came into contact with the woman's power. And under this contact, suddenly, the entire vibranium bone sword trembled. It's like a long hungry traveler in the desert, suddenly seeing an oasis in front of him, and there are naked beauties taking a bath in the oasis pool, so excited to the extreme. Immediately, in Chen Hui's unbelievable eyes, he saw the circle of radioactive energy running crazily outside the vibranium bone sword, followed by, like a mad dog, cutting and swallowing the woman's energy violently, making the woman, suddenly there was a terrified scream. Ah! What is this? What kind of power is this? It can cut me, swallow me, and integrate me. Impossible! Impossible! I am the incarnation of space power, how could I be cut and swallowed so easily, or even easily integrated? Only I can integrate others, no one else can integrate me. The woman screamed frantically. At the same time, Gwen, who was shrouded in the power of the Tesseract, suddenly regained consciousness, and looked towards Chen Hui. When he saw the woman without a face, there was a strange expression on his expression, and he immediately looked up. Let's start, one stroke. The screaming and twisted body of the woman froze suddenly at this moment, as if being strangled by a rope, she couldn't even struggle, let alone run away. But in this way, with the bone sword in Chen Hui's hand, the power of the breasted woman was completely cut and swallowed. The whole process was carefully observed by Chen Hui until the woman was completely devoured by the bone sword. His eyes flickered strangely, and he saw that the whole body of the bone sword revealed a crystal-like transparent color, a blue halo it diffuses out, and one can see streams of flowing energy flowing from it, which is very strange. Swish 680. Swing the bone sword. Immediately, a sword light flew away, and under the blink of an eye, it traveled a distance of several meters in the blink of an eye, and finally cut on the wall, leaving a slight crack on the wall where the vibranium skeleton was integrated. Chen Hui gasped. But now is not the time to study his mutated bone sword. Seeing the strange woman being cut and swallowed by the bone sword, Chen Hui looked at Gwen, and Gwen was also looking at him, holding the tesseract in his hand, with a beautiful halo under the shroud. At this moment, Gwen actually exudes a kind of cold and sacred meaning. Chen Hui frowned, wondering if Gwen had returned to normal at this moment. Wow! Suddenly, the space in front of him was distorted, and the next moment, Gwen appeared in front of his eyes, and then fell into his arms. Chen Hui was taken aback. Chen Hui, I'm sorry. Gwen's voice murmured, I shouldn't be controlled by that thing, Okay. Chen Hui stroked Gwen's head with a doting look, and smiled, it's not your fault, but you have to tell me what happened just now? What is that weird woman? Chapter 108. That woman, I don't quite know what it is. Gwen recalled, it seems to be a mass of energy, and it seems to be a soul-like existence, but it also gives me a feeling as if it is myself. After I touched the tesseract just now, I just had a strange dream. In the dream I was wandering alone in the empty universe, very lonely, this kind of loneliness is very strange, like no one to accompany, but also like the kind of master who can't find an opponent. The feeling of loneliness, I woke up when I heard your voice. When Chen Hui heard this, a strange expression appeared on his face. Master lonely? This may be the feeling that weird woman gave Gwen. But since it is a lonely master, it proves that the woman should be very strong, not just ordinary strong, but unprecedentedly strong, but judging from the situation just now, she is not much stronger. Chen Hui was a little puzzled. Forget it, this kind of messy thing, probably needs a professional person to explain it clearly. Chen Hui thought to himself, the Marvel world is not only a sci-fi world, but also a magical world. Although I can use scientific methods to explain Odin's magic, magic is such an ancient thing that sometimes it is traditional magic. Only knowledge can explain clearly. I think I can ask Hammer to find some people who are proficient in magic in the Marvel world to communicate with, for example, Doctor Strange. However, Doctor Strange's whereabouts are erratic and extremely mysterious, and it is really not an easy task to find him. And with Chen Hui's character, he will not put all his eggs in one basket. So in addition to asking Hammer to find traces of Doctor Strange, he also plans to travel around the world to find and visit some mysterious ancient people. Especially where the East is. There are many origins of mysterious magic. Just like Doctor Strange's master, Sorcerer Supreme, Ancient One, he is from the Himalayas in the East. And Chen Hui knows even more that the birthplace of Ancient One is in the western region of China, where the origin of many mysterious powers in the East. The place of Kunlun. Understanding the origin of these mysterious powers is also good for me to cultivate into divine power chakra. I will thoroughly study Odin's genes, understand Odin's magic, understand the structure of divine power, and in addition to the exploration of those ancient mysterious powers, maybe not only will I become a divine chakra, but I will also cultivate a power stronger than the divine chakra. Chen Hui thought to himself. Now he has the Tesseract, Loki's scepter, originally thought that relying on these two things, he would be able to obtain infinite benefits through research in the future. But after experiencing this incident with Gwen, he suddenly understood that there are still many things in this magical Marvel world that he does not understand. Whether it is the space gem in Tesseract or the mind gem in Loki's scepter, both of them are cosmic treasures formed by the evolution of the universe for billions of years, contains infinite. Although he has achieved achievements that many people can't achieve in their entire lives, compared to the entire vast universe, it is still very shallow. So Chen Hui decided that in the future, while studying Odin's blood, Tesseract, and Loki's scepter, he would also travel around the world, looking for those who have ancient knowledge, learn the origin of ancient mysterious magic hidden deep in this sci-fi world, and enrich his lack of magic knowledge. Chen Hui, I still have a weird feeling, please help me find out, is there something wrong with my ability? Suddenly Gwen said. Oh? What does it feel like? Chen Hui wondered. Like this. As Gwen said, she stretched out her hand and pointed at the Tesseract that had been put down, followed by Chen Hui's unbelievable expression. The Tesseract actually disappeared out of thin air. But in the next moment, as Gwen moved her hand, the Tesseract appeared in her hand again, floating and spinning on her palm, exuding a hazy blue light, which looked very strange. Seeing this scene, Chen Hui was surprised, and soon thought of something, and said to Gwen, Gwen, after you put on the symbiosis battle suit, didn't you say that you can communicate with the power in a mysterious space dimension? Try it now, feel it. Is it the medium leading to the mysterious space dimension? Is Tesseract? It is good. Gwen nodded. Immediately after she closed her eyes, she felt them carefully, and soon her eyes opened, and the moment she opened them, a mass of flame-like rays of light surged out from her palm, which was the size of a head file. It was several times larger than the last time it was condensed. Seeing this, Chen Hui's eyes lit up, and he became more certain about the guess in his heart. Chen Hui, I can feel that through Tesseract, I can really communicate with more of that magical and mysterious space dimension. Gwen said pleasantly, but what is going on? It's very simple. Chen Hui smiled, because you are now the owner of Tesseract and the owner recognized by the space gem. What? Gwen's eyes widened, this, really? I thought things like confession were things in fantasy novels, but they actually happened in the real world. Haha. Gwen, you said that in this crazy world, genetically modified monsters, mutants with super abilities are born every day, and even alien races descend, so what is impossible? Chen Hui waved his hand and said, but Gwen, when you don't need it in the future, keep the Tesseract well and don't show it, understand, Nyo Zhao? I definitely understand this. Gwen said with a coquettish smile, the so-called wealth is not exposed. Haha. Oh, by the way, Gwen, since you can be recognized by the space gem, you can try this. Suddenly, Chen Hui seemed to remember something, and opened the number 19 box as well. Inside, Loki's scepter is placed. Okay. Gwen looked over and saw another gem-like thing appearing. She couldn't help looking at Chen Hui strangely. This, can't it be the other infinite gems you mentioned? Good bottom. Chen Hui smiled and nodded, there is a mind gem hidden in this scepter, try it and see if you can feel it. It is good. Gwen nodded. Immediately after, he raised his hand, dignified, towards the Loki scepter, and touched the gem. Chapter 109. White jade hands touched the gemstone. The gemstone bloomed with a misty light, and it looked extraordinarily beautiful. When it touched the hand, it seemed to flicker slightly, but it quickly sank into calm. Seeing this, Chen Hui brought the energy detector over again and asked Gwen to try again. After it was finally confirmed that Gwen could not activate the mind gem's ability, he closed the box and put away Loki's scepter. Look at this, among the infinite gems, only the space gem has responded to Gwen. Chen Hui thought to himself, and immediately said to Gwen, Gwen, you can stay in my laboratory these days, and learn fighting skills with me every day, and I will tell Hammer at Imperial University, there is no problem with the recommendation, and now you are one of the best super ability powerhouses on the planet. You have to use your ability proficiently. Okay. Gwen nodded slightly. To be honest, learning how to use your own abilities is much more interesting than studying those boring exam courses, and she even can't wait now. Next, 117 carefully inspected the various performances of the Loki scepter, as well as the intensity of the radiated energy rays, etc. Chen Hui put away the scepter and asked Kaguya to seal it in the deepest warehouse. And just after the scepter was blocked, Chen Hui didn't see that in the darkness, at the top of the scepter, where the blue gem was located, there was a golden light shining out of it. In the following days, Chen Hui first called Hammer over, and asked him to find Dr. Strange's whereabouts, and by the way, search for him some ancient and mysterious places on Earth, especially those related to magic, mysterious energy, and supernatural powers. If the person with the ability is concerned, show him the specific location. This information is for him to travel around the world in the future, to visit and learn the ancient magic civilization of the Earth. In addition, he studied Odin's blood, tesseract in the laboratory, and taught Gwen to practice fighting skills and how to use his ability. This day. Wow! In the training room, Gwen was wearing a loose white combat uniform and kicked, CCFG, violently. This kick was fast, fierce, and extremely precise. Chen Hui couldn't help secretly praising him, but he didn't show any expression on the surface. He raised his arm and blocked Gwen's attack. Immediately following the stroke of the other palm, it seemed to draw a circle. It seemed extremely gentle, but it stirred the air, causing a gust of wind to surge around, and along with his palm, it moved towards Gwen. Body pressed down. Seeing this, Gwen frowned slightly. Swish! With a movement of his body, he did a backflip immediately, trying to avoid Chen Hui's blow. But the strong wind was so violent that it actually made her unstable in mid-air, and then suddenly fell down. Call! Chen Hui moved his body, caught Gwen, and said with a smile, Gwen, although your kick is fast, accurate and ruthless, but sometimes in the battle of life and death, others will not forcefully catch your kick. Roll suddenly, lean down, and attack your lower body, and then you will look very passive. Remember, in melee combat, once you use your legs, it is an inevitable killing move. It is a killing method to kill the enemy with one blow, and you must not show any mercy, because once you fail to use your legs to attack, it is easy someone finds a flaw and kills you, understand? Speaking of the latter, Chen Hui's expression became serious. Okay, I understand. Gwen stuck out her tongue, looking very excited, but seriously, didn't I improve a lot in the battle just now? That's right, it's true that we've made a lot of progress, and it's progressed at a rapid rate. Chen Hui scratched Gwen's nose, smiled. To be honest, Gwen's current physical fitness is increasing day by day due to the tempering of Tesseract, and his strength is also increasing day by day. Naturally, his ability to space is growing extremely fast. With a solid foundation, Gwen will naturally make rapid progress when he starts to practice fighting techniques. However, although Gwen's space power has been greatly enhanced now, and under Chen Hui's research, he has successfully integrated into the teleportation totem leading to the God's domain, but in the end he failed to create a cosmic passage leading to the God's domain. Gwen's spiritual power is a little weak, and he can't control such a majestic space power for the time being. This made Chen Hui frown slightly. Mental power cannot be increased casually, and even Tesseract has not been developed yet, let alone Mind Gem. If he wants to enhance spiritual power, he probably has to go back to his old profession. Use genetics to enhance Gwen. Drop. Suddenly Kaguya's voice sounded, Doctor, this is today's news video, please watch it. As he said that, a video image appeared in mid-air. Chen Hui looked over. Although he doesn't have the habit of watching the news, after all, what he wants to know, if he asks Kaguya to search the whole network, he will soon find a lot of things, so Mu Hung asks Hammer to investigate. But Gwen has the habit of watching the news. No way, who told her father to be a policeman? After just a glance, Chen Hui lost any interest and bowed his head to do his own thing. Hey? It's time to watch the news. Gwen came out of the shower, was drinking milk and eating bread, and looked at the news video with her mouth puffed out. When she saw this, her eyes widened and she even said to Chen Hui, this is incredible, the president has been assassinated. What? Chen Hui raised his head in surprise, is the president dead? No, no. Gwen swallowed the bread and pointed to the news, the president was assassinated, but he didn't die, because at the last moment, the mutant who assassinated the president was shot and ran away. Oh? So it was an attempted assassination. And it was mutant who did it. Chen Hui looked over. In the news screen, a strange-looking mutant appeared. It was a guy with blue skin, with strange lines all over his body, and a tail that looked like a devil on his back, which looked very strange. This is... Chen Hui saw this, but his eyes moved. Nightcrawler. Chapter 110. Nightcrawler has the ability to move instantly, and can not only move by itself, but also move with other people and heavy objects. Ability is a bit like Gwen. However, Gwen, who is the owner of the space gem, is much higher than Nightcrawler in terms of transfer speed, the number of people and heavy objects he can carry, and the range of teleportation. It is not comparable to Nightcrawler, a small mutant of. What Chen Hui noticed was not Nightcrawler, but the huge group behind Nightcrawler mutant. And even more specifically, a well-deserved leader in mutant, Professor X. Professor X has extremely powerful spiritual power, and has the most powerful brain in the world. His mental power is undoubtedly strong. If I can transfer his ability to Gwen, and add that brainwave machine the increase, it is estimated that Gwen should be able to control enough powerful space power, so as to open the cosmic passage to God's domain. In Chen Hui's heart, a bold idea surged up. Now Gwen's melee ability needs to be improved, and the only shortcoming is that her mental strength is not good enough. Therefore, in order to enhance Gwen's spiritual power, Chen Hui immediately thought of Professor X after seeing Nightcrawler. Definitely, in addition to Professor X, there are actually some options, such as Phoenix, and in X-Men 2, the son of Wilhelm Stryker who wants to destroy all mutants, Jason, the guy who is good at creating hallucinations in the human mind. If you want to enhance your spiritual power, you don't just need to study genes, but you also need to obtain some brain secretions such as brain marrow, so that I can conduct research and improve Gwen's spiritual power. If this is the case, I must use the Professor X, or others, must be arrested. Chen Hui began to think about the arrest plan in his mind. He didn't make it clear that he must capture Professor X. If he encounters other suitable targets and has the opportunity, he will capture them without any hesitation, and then extract their genes and brain secretions. Moreover, if more different samples can be obtained, then there are multiple research objectives, and Chen Hui's research results will be more perfect. So Chen Hui laid out his plan. First of all, if the completion of the plan reaches a perfect level, I should not only get Professor X's genes and brain secretions, but also Phoenix, and Jason's genes and brain secretions at the same time, and this time go to the mutant side. I can also get the genes of Storm and others, especially Burning Man and Storm, extract their power attributes, and integrate them into my chakra. In this way, my chakra will have wind, thunder, water, ice, the 4 attributes of fire, contain more mysteries of mutual generation and mutual restraint, a small enhancement of my chakra energy. And if the plan cannot reach the level of perfection, at least the genes and brain secretions of a person with spiritual ability must be obtained. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot a key person. Suddenly Chen Hui's eyes moved. This time, if I have the opportunity, I will also get the Mystique gene. If I can study the mystery of shape-shifting in the Mystique gene thoroughly, and integrate it into my symbiont battle suit, maybe I can create something similar to Mystique X-Men, reversing the future that Sentinel-like symbiosis battlesuit. Even integrating this gene into the steel armor robot made by the whip, I originally, can make the Sentinel. Chen Hui made Sentinel, naturally not to kill mutant, how could he do such a boring thing? What he is looking for is Sentinel's perverted ability. Think about it, if he creates a super Sentinel with the abilities of all the mutants in this world, how strong would it be? And he also has a steel head of the destroyer of God's domain. However, I don't necessarily want to make a Sentinel. If I can concentrate all the mutant abilities in the world on one of my symbiote battle suits, that would be a good choice, asking for flowers. Chen Hui thought to himself, but it is a very cumbersome thing to collect mutant genes one after another and extract their abilities. By the way, doesn't little rascal have the ability to copy other mutant abilities? I got her genes. One plan after another kept popping up in Chen Hui's mind. Originally, Chen Hui didn't think mutant was of much use to him. But now that I think about it carefully, mutant still has a lot of benefits to him. At least the combination of mystique and the rascally ability can enhance his symbiote battle suit to a perverted level, not to mention the ability of Professor X and others, can help him create a cosmic channel leading to God's domain. Moreover, right now his research on the blood of Odin and Tesseract has not made much progress, so it is better to expand his thinking in another direction, which may be helpful to his future research. Thinking of this, Chen Hui listed out all the plans in his mind, and prepared to start taking action in a day or two. Chen Hui, what are you going to do this time? Suddenly Gwen poked her head over. She knew Chen Hui too well. Once he was silent and thinking, he must be thinking of some plan to make something happen. It's nothing, I'm just going to wander over to Mutant for a while, and I'll be back soon after I'm done. Chen Hui said casually, I will ask Peter and the others to come and practice with you these days. Oh, by the way, don't you also want Mary Jane to obtain the ability? I have already prepared the potion. It will be her birthday in a few days. You give it to her as a gift. But let me remind you, don't scare others, otherwise Peter will be nagging in your ear for a long time. I do not want. Suddenly Gwen said firmly, this time, I want to be with you. What? Chen Hui was taken aback and looked at Gwen. After seeing the determined expression on the other party's face, Chen Hui turned his eyes, and immediately showed a funny smile on the corner of his mouth. Are you sure? 5. Chapter 111. Chen Hui held a sword in his hand. This sword is crystal clear, with a blue streamer, like a crystal gem. The icy sword reflected the glamorous light of the metal wall, making it look a bit dazzling. Suddenly Chen Hui's palm moved. The glamorous light at the blade spread out and turned into a sharp edge. There seemed to be a circle of cutting in the invisible, circulating in the air. Laugh. Suddenly, a potted plant in the corner turned into two halves from the middle. Chen Hui's eyes moved slightly, but he didn't seem to be surprised by it. The next moment, he suddenly raised his sword and slashed at the metal wall in front of him. Wow! Suddenly, a stream of ice blue light burst out from where the blade was, and turned into an energy blade, which reached the metal wall in an instant. 810. But at this moment, the blade blinked and disappeared. At the same time, behind the metal wall, the head of a human-shaped target made of refined steel fell down with a bang, and the cutting part was extremely smooth. This bone sword, since it devoured the weird woman who wanted to host Gwen, has possessed some extraordinary abilities, as if it has further strengthened my vibranium bone. Chen Hui looked at the mutated bone sword in his hand, his gaze flickered slightly. These days, in addition to studying Odin's blood, Tesseract, training with Gwen, and designing various plans to contact the mutant forces, he is also studying the bone sword that has grown thick. Since this bone sword mutated, it couldn't be decomposed and melted according to his will. However, it can be turned into a stream of energy, stored in the cracks of one's own bones, and when needed, it will come out with a thought. In addition, the bone sword also has some incredible abilities. First, its nature as a vibranium skeleton has not changed. The power of the strange woman did not cause any damage to the bone sword, but it caused a strange impact on the molecular and atomic structure of the bone sword. While retaining the original properties of vibranium, it endowed it with additional power. It's as if as long as he activates chakra, his vibranium skeleton will have the ability to resist metal. Right now, this bone sword can not only be transformed into an energy form at will, but the energy blade released can also be instantly transferred within a short distance at will. That is to say, when you slash a blade, the enemy is still far away, and you think you can avoid it, but in the blink of an eye, the blade will fall in front of the enemy and instantly kill him. The unexpected sword is often the deadliest. Definitely, this is just one ability to take risks. In addition, there is a more perverted one. For example, at this moment, Chen Hui has already picked up the bone sword, and with the chakra pouring into it, he slams out a sword. Swish! An incomparably sharp light flashed from the blade of the sword. This ray of light seems to be able to tear apart the space, and with the flickering, it actually made Chen Hui's figure disappear in the blink of an eye. When he reappeared, he suddenly appeared behind the metal wall with a sword, and slashed down with his sword, causing the human-shaped target whose head had fallen to be split into two halves in an instant. Call. Chen Hui put away the bone sword, and wounds all over his body seemed to be healing automatically. This instant killing sword technique really puts a heavy burden on the body. Chen Hui sighed in his heart, if I hadn't integrated the Green Titan gene and possessed a powerful self-healing ability, I wouldn't be able to bear the pain of tearing apart this space. Good. The bone sword can not only cut out the blade that travels through space, but also can take Chen Hui's whole body to travel through space, descending in front of the enemy in an instant, and beheading him. Chen Hui called this kind of swordsmanship instant-killing swordsmanship. Unless it originally has supernatural powers, or magic power, otherwise, it will be very difficult for the body to forcibly tear open the space and shuttle. Theoretically speaking, as long as anyone gets this bone sword, they can travel through space and perform instant-kill swordsmanship. But in fact, only people like Chen Hui who possess the pervert-level self-healing ability can cast it. But the mutated power of this bone sword is still secondary. One of the things that Chen Hui is most concerned about is since the power of that strange woman can mutate and enhance his vibranium bones, it means, his vibranium bones still have room for further improvement, and can become even stronger. This is very important to Chen Hui. Because vibranium is almost the most stable substance on the Earth, or in the Marvel multi-universe, it can be said that it is almost impossible for him to continue to improve the bones ability. But right now, there is room for further improvement, that is to give him the whole body bones and extra abilities. Drop. Suddenly the door of the training room opened. Gwen walks in. She looked at Chen Hui and smiled slightly. My dear Dr. Chen Hui, Hammer is here to see you. He said he has important information and wants to tell you in person. Oh? Tell me in person. Chen Hui's heart skipped a beat. When Chen Hui came to the research room, he saw Hammer walking up and down, looking very anxious. Looking at Chen Hui, his eyes lit up immediately, and he hurriedly walked over. Boss, I have some important news for you. Oh? I don't know what it is. Seeing Hammer's appearance like this, Chen Hui couldn't help being curious. What is the important thing that can toss Hammer into this appearance? Boss, according to your instructions, I have a friendly exchange with the Xavier Gifted Youth School. I had already invited Professor X to have a meeting and exchange, but a man suddenly came halfway. Controlled, even Yvonne Vank is controlled by him. Hammer said, originally he wanted to control me, but I was lucky and escaped quickly, so I came back to tell you about this. Boss, this is the person. With that said, Hammer opened the phone photo album and showed it to Chen Hui. Chen Hui frowned. The others are okay, they can actually control the whip with the curse chip? This is how the same thing? Out of curiosity, Chen Hui looked at the phone, and saw a blurry figure in a photo. Only half of the face on the side could be seen, obviously it was taken by Zhang Chen. But when Chen Hui saw this face, he immediately fixed his eyes and recognized it. This person is Loki. Chapter 112. It's actually Loki. Chen Hui had an interesting look on his face. Obviously, the purpose of Loki attacking Hammer and others, and controlling the people under him, is to get close to mutant. Or more precisely, access to Professor X. The purpose is almost the same as his. But why did Loki contact Professor X? Could it be? Suddenly Chen Hui's mind flashed, he wants to use Professor X to search for Tesseract and his scepter. Chen Hui knows that Professor X has almost the most powerful brain in the world, and its telepathy ability is at an abnormal level. Especially after using the brainwave machine, with the enhanced divergence of mental power, it can cover the whole world and enter anyone in the world. In the mind. In addition, the strong spiritual power also endows Professor X with the ability to sense unique energy. It's almost a functional human flesh scanner. Loki must have taken a fancy to this, so he went to find Professor X. After all, the current Loki not only did not get the Tesseract, but also lost the scepter given to him by the Chitauri, so it can be said that he has nothing. You know, as a pioneer, he came to Earth to open the cosmic channel for the Chitauri army. But now several months have passed, and he has not moved at all. How does this make the Chitauri people think of him? Since Loki went to Professor X, he must have done enough homework on the strong in the Earth's civilization in the past few months, and he was tracked by S.H.I.E.L.D. for several months without being caught, which proves that he has a lot of forbearance. It has tempered his arrogance and arrogance as a member of God's domain. And this kind of Loki is undoubtedly the most difficult to deal with, even more difficult to deal with than him holding the Mind Gem Scepter. But a smile appeared on the corner of Chen Hui's mouth. I just like challenges. A Loki who is smart, cunning, and forbearing is undoubtedly more interesting than a Loki who is arrogant and arrogant. Thinking of this, Chen Hui's eyes flickered, he rubbed his chin, looked at Hammer, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Hammer, I'm not serious with you. Hey? Boss, what do you want to say? I'm listening. Hammer quickly moved his head closer. It's easy. Chen Hui smiled and said, tell you about the person in the photo on your mobile phone, just say. Since you are interested in me, Dr. Chen Hui, then come to visit me in person, and if you use some small tricks, then I'm sorry, I'll make him die ugly. Talk and move. Thorn. Behind Hammer's neck, a phalanx pierced into it suddenly, and blood splashed out. Boss, you. Hammer suddenly opened his eyes wide, showing disbelief. Seeing Chen Hui sneer, the disbelief in his eyes suddenly turned into madness, and he laughed grinningly, hee, I never thought that you could see through me. Dr. Chen Hui, can you tell me who you are? I seem to be in your strange chip blockade, I can't see any information about your secrets, I have to say, your secrecy work is very good. Oh? Really? Then thank you for your compliment, the evil god from God's domain, Loki. Chen Hui looked at Hammer, whose expression changed drastically, and he knew that this guy had already been possessed by Loki. Although his spell-sealed chip was breached by Loki, Chen Hui has already taken countermeasures against it. Once the spell-sealed chip is lost, he will block and erase all secret information about him. So even if Loki possessed Hammer and controlled him, he would not know any secret information about him at all. Interesting, interesting. Loki couldn't help clapping his hands, but I'm curious, how did you know that I was already possessed by your subordinate? I remember, I didn't show any flaws. It's very simple. Chen Hui pointed to his head, and said with a smile, because you are so stupid, I just tricked you, and you came out on your own initiative, saying that the evil god Loki is a smart and cunning person, but in my opinion, his brains are not enough. Use it. You. Loki's face changed suddenly, and he wanted to say something. But at this moment, Chen Hui raised his fingertips, and a blood-stained silver piece of metal jumped out from Hammer's neck, causing him to stop in pain, and his voice stopped abruptly. Okay, Loki, what you are qualified to say here with me can only be so much, this is already my greatest tolerance for you who came here without invitation. But don't worry, I will find you soon. Since you took the initiative to provoke me, then I will accompany you to the end. Chen Hui sneered. Suddenly, a wave of spiritual energy wrapped chakra and rushed into Hammer's mind, and under the madness, it tore apart Loki's remaining thoughts in an instant. It's a pity that he doesn't have supernatural chakra right now. Otherwise, he didn't need to tear apart Loki's mind at all, just controlled it directly, and could easily find Loki's trace. With the disappearance of Loki's thoughts, the curse chip was picked out, and Hammer passed out immediately. Chen Hui, how are you doing? Gwen also knew about Loki, and when she saw the situation right now, she probably knew what was going on. Loki, he controlled the Whiplash and the others, and went to Xavier's school for gifted teenagers. Chen Hui said, his purpose should be to find Professor X, and he wants to use Professor X to find the traces of Tesseract, but he is doomed to fail. No matter what he thinks, he will never think that Tesseract has already recognized you as the master, hidden in your body, any energy fluctuations will not spread out. As he said that, a smile appeared in Chen Hui's eyes, but this is just right, once Loki makes trouble at Xavier's School for Geniuses, then we can take advantage of the chaos to accomplish our goals. Oh! Gwen's eyes lit up when he heard the words, that means we are leaving now. Not urgent. Chen Hui smiled and said, Loki is not an idiot after all. If he wants to make a move, he will definitely look for the best time. Right now, he has just been exposed to the Xavier School for Geniuses, so it is obviously not a good time. And in the meantime, I want to improve my spell-printed chip, so as not to be broken through again by Loki. Chapter 113. The curse seal chip injected into Hammer and others was the 1.5th generation of the curse seal. The main effect is to control, brainwash, and partly enhance physical fitness. Right now, we are going to start manufacturing a new generation of spell printing chips. Chen Hui originally wanted to strengthen the control factor in it, but after thinking about it, he suddenly had a new idea. Why should he use the effect of the curse printed chip only in the aspect of control? In addition to control, curse seal is also an excellent means to enhance ability. Especially to enhance the subordinates. Strengthening one's own strength is an important aspect, and strengthening one's own power is also a very important aspect. Otherwise, things like today, when one's own people are counter-controlled by the enemy, will happen one after another. If that's the case, I will not only add control elements to the spell seal chip, but also add some other elements. Chen Hui thought in his heart, for example, the power type spell seal chip can train a group of fighters who are good at power attacks while controlling the subordinates. Another example is the defensive spell seal chip. While controlling, it can also cultivate a group of tanks that specialize in defense, such as speed-type assassins, long-range AP magicians, AD shooters, support, etc. Besides, these elements can also be integrated to create a almighty spell printed chip. Chen Hui's heart brightened. That's a great idea. However, Chen Hui is only thinking about the all-round spell printing chip for the time being, and he can't make it at all. And even if it can be manufactured, it will take him a lot of effort to customize it according to a special person, and it can only be used by the elites under his command. But like a multi-spell chip that only enhances one aspect, manufacturing is not a problem, and it can even be mass-produced. Moreover, once the number of people increases, they can cooperate with each other to make up for their own shortcomings. Compared with the almighty type, the utility they have will not be worse or even higher. Anyway, let's create a multi-spell second-generation chip first, and see how it works. Chen Hui immediately started the experimental work. While Chen Hui was researching the second-generation chip of diversified mantra, Xavier School for Gifted Youth welcomed their guests. College. In the living room. Charles, it's an honor to meet you. A man in a black elegant suit with a very receding hairline smiled. He, of course, was Loki. At the moment when he was speaking, his eyes flickered slightly, he looked at Professor X sitting in the wheelchair in front of him, and said with great interest, "To be honest, I have been looking forward to this meeting with you for a long time." "You're welcome, sit down." Professor X also smiled, and stretched out his hand to signal, "But I'm curious, why do you people from Hammer Industries suddenly become interested in the construction of the Xavier School for Gifted Youth?" And Professor X looked at Loki, "Didn't you say that Mr. Hammer is coming? Why is he not around?" "I'm sorry, Charles." Loki showed a helpless look, "Mr. Hammer has important things to do, so he can't come, but don't worry, I will talk to you on behalf of Mr. Hammer, he has already given this matter to me with full authority." "Oh? Really? It seems that your excellency holds a lot of importance in Mr. Hammer's heart." Professor X's eyes flickered brightly, and he said with a deep meaning. Hearing this, Loki raised his eyebrows, and immediately he said, "Professor, don't make fun of me. As far as I know, as long as you want to, with a little movement of your mind and a sweep of my mind, you can clear up my affairs. Do you know everything? In this case, you should be able to tell at a glance whether what I said is true or not. Don't worry, I won't just enter other people's minds." Professor X smiled and said, "At most, I just want to know other people's names. Mr. Oliver, I'm all ears to what you want to talk about next, but you have to think about it. Do you want to talk about the construction of the school, or about the relationship between mutants and human beings? The problem of peaceful coexistence between Point 17. I'll think it over, Charles." When Loki heard this, a slightly evil smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "I think we can talk about something about mutant now." In Chen Hui's lab chi in one of the ARC's reaction devices, streaks of smoke suddenly rose up. In it, one can see many tiny lasers engraving and cutting something on a piece of metal, making what was originally a 1 centimeter thick piece of metal now as thin as a cicada's wing. Even if you don't look carefully, you can't even see the existence of that piece of metal. Call. Finally the whole device stopped. Chen Hui opened the device, took a pen-like instrument, and put it into a small hole above the metal sheet. One press of a switch. With a whoosh, the entire sheet of metal, as thin as a cicada's wing, was sucked into it. Chen Hui swiped his finger on this pen-shaped instrument, and the entire metal surface immediately became transparent, and one could see that there were streaks of blue streamers flowing like water. And that piece of metal, as thin as a cicada's wing, is floating in it, constantly absorbing these blue streamers. "Good Zhaos, after all the blue streamers are absorbed, the entire metal sheet no longer has any metallic characteristics, but becomes completely transparent, as if it has turned into a blue energy body. Crystal clear and dusty. Chen Hui inserted this pen-shaped instrument into an injection gun, and when he pressed the switch at the end, there was a sound of PSST, followed by the entire injection gun lighting up, bursting into blue light. From the tip of the gun, a streamer of blue particles spins out, which is extremely dazzling. Okay. I integrated the power of the Tesseract into this second-generation chip of Curse Seal, which is a small arc reactor, and even part of the ability gene of the second-generation symbiont battlesuit integrated into it, making this chip, can bring people extremely fast speed. Chen Hui picked up the injection gun and pointed it at Hammer's neck. Next, we'll see how it works. Chapter 114. PSST. As soon as the injection gun touched Hammer's neck, the streamer of pointed blue particles all condensed and penetrated into Hanmer's skin and flesh, forming a swirl-like mark. Hanmer was shocked. There seemed to be a faint flash of lightning in his eyes. At the same time, the entire injection gun dimmed, and the second-generation chip of the Curse Seal has been injected into Hanmer's body, and this chip is basically in the form of semi-energy. After penetrating into Hammer's body, it will immediately integrate with the cervical spine, and then imprinted deep in the nerve center of the brain. It can be said that once the Curse Seal 2 is injected, it will never be taken out again. Moreover, since the second generation of Mantra Seal is semi-energized and closely integrated with the nerve center, it is basically impossible to break it, because once it is damaged, the entire nerve brain will be destroyed, thus making the cursed person dies completely. Call. Hammer quickly returned to normal. He took a deep breath and looked into Chen Hui's eyes, not only full of respect, but also full of gratitude. He could feel that after injecting the second generation of 330 Curse Seals, his whole body people's physical fitness has been greatly improved, as if they were 20 years younger. Shua. Just about to stand up, but at this moment, his whole body turned into an afterimage. The speed was so fast that he staggered and fell to the ground. At the moment of falling to the ground, Hanmer stretched out his hand subconsciously, and actually slapped his hand on the ground, flipped it over, and stood firmly on the ground again. This. Hammer opened his eyes wide, unable to believe that he could do this. Hammer, how are you feeling? Chen Hui's voice came. The situation of Hammer just now was in his eyes. To be honest, he was very satisfied. Judging from the situation just now, Hammer's speed has indeed increased greatly as he expected. And the nerve response speed has also become very fast. The only downside now is that Hammer is not very familiar with his greatly enhanced body and needs to exercise to adapt to his enhanced ability. It feels so good. The Curse Seal 2 also gave Hammer a very strong ability to adapt, and soon he became familiar with his own ability. The figure ran fast in the laboratory, turning into afterimages, and the whole person shouted excitedly. Scream! And Chen Hui also gave Hammer a small test. In the end, it was found that after getting the enhancement of the second generation of Curse Seal, Hammer's nerve reaction speed is about 2 to 3 times that of normal people. The normal speed is about 25 ms/s, and the limit speed is 30 ms/s. In addition, physical strength has also become very long, almost 3 times that of ordinary people. Definitely, if you want to keep running at high speed all the time, it is not enough to have 3 times the physical strength of a normal person, so Chen Hui also equipped Hanmer with a potion that can quickly restore physical strength. How easy is it to run continuously for an hour and don't feel much do? Although this speed is weak compared to those with real speed abilities, it is for his subordinates to use after all, and Chen Hui thinks that it is already very good to achieve this effect. Hammer, I will group you into the ranks of speeders. In the future, you can choose 3 to 5 people to come to me and inject the second generation of Curse Seal to form a group of speedsters, and you will be the team leader. Chen Hui said, oh, by the way, in Curse Seal 2, there is also a simple Curse Seal battlesuit, although it doesn't enhance your ability much, but it can hide your identity. Try to gather your spirits. Battlesuit revealed. It is good. Hammer nodded and got up to run. Soon. From his neck, CCEB, streams of strange matter seeped out, quickly covering his whole body, and finally turned into a blue tight-fitting battlesuit, covering his whole body. Very good. Seeing this, Chen Hui smiled. Next, it's time for us to go to the Xavier School for Gifted Youth. Xavier School for Gifted Youth. Now it was the dead of night. Everyone was almost asleep, and the lights of the whole school seemed very dim. Call. Suddenly, a figure appeared strangely under the light. This is a heavily armed soldier. Holding a submachine gun in his hand, he walked towards the school silently, and behind him, there were 7 or 8 soldiers. At the same time, soldiers sneaked in from all directions of the school, and soon the entire school was almost all surrounded. Far away, next to a gunship, 2 men were talking. One of the men behaved elegantly, and there was always a slightly evil smile on the corner of his mouth when talking and laughing. He, of course, was Loki. Beside him, there was a slightly shorter figure with thinning and white hair, wearing glasses, but with a majestic general appearance between his brows. Seeing his soldiers sneaking into the school at this moment, his eyes sparkled, and the corner of his mouth curled up into a cruel smile. Hee, I never thought that there would be a school full of mutants here, Mr. Loki. Without you, I would think to find this place, you have to spend a lot of effort on that Magneto. That guy's willpower is so strong that he can resist my control drugs. And if you don't lure Professor X out, I want to catch him. It will take a lot of work to find him. It is an honor to serve you, Colonel Stryker. Loki smiled slightly. Professor X has been caught, Magneto has surrendered for you, the 2 leaders of mutant are in your hands. Now, all you need to do is destroy this mutant school den and find that brainwave machine. Colonel Stryker, this will be the pinnacle of your life. But after that, I need your son Jason to control Professor X and search for something for me, is that okay? Definitely no problem. Stryker looked at Loki, showing a deep smile, but Mr. Loki, I heard that S.H.I.E.L.D. is arresting you. Since you chose to cooperate with me, I will naturally protect you, but you also know that the power of S.H.I.E.L.D. is astonishing, and they even mastered some powerful superpowers. You have to cooperate with me, just to help me catch Professor X and find this school. It may not be enough, you yes or no. Chapter 115. Loki raised his eyebrows when he heard this. Immediately, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he waved to a soldier, come here. The soldier looked at Stryker, seeing Stryker nodding, he walked over. Remember, next time, you may be in some pain. Loki said, putting his hand on the soldier's body. Wow! Suddenly, a flame surged from his body and penetrated into his body, causing him to open his eyes wide and let out a scream, but immediately after that, the muscles all over his body suddenly exploded, and traces of flame texture spread across his body. Suddenly, an astonishing aura erupted from his body, and the shocked Stryker couldn't help but retreat. Call. The soldier calmed down. Looking at his hands, he showed disbelief. This. I feel that now, I have inexhaustible strength all over my body. With a wave. Suddenly a ball of flame blasted out from his hand. This scene immediately caused the surrounding soldiers to look sideways, and Stryker's eyes were even more fixed. Colonel Stryker, I have endowed your soldier with magical powers, Loki said. Now, this soldier can take down the fiercest mutant in this school. What do you think? Not bad. Stryker nodded, looking at Loki with a different look. Stretching out his hand, he smiled and said, Mr. Loki, starting from tonight, you will be my most solid ally, Wilhelm Stryker. That old Ross is afraid of SHIELD. I'm not afraid. If you ask me to cooperate, you will definitely be in this life. The most correct choice ever. I am very honored. Loki smiled, also holding out his hand. Okay. Next, notify the groups and start taking action. With a wave of his hand, Stryker immediately led a group of soldiers towards the depths of the school. However, he didn't see that Loki, who was behind him, had a sinister smile on his lips. Humph, Wilhelm Stryker, I think you will soon realize that cooperating with me will be the most important part of your life. The most correct choice ever made. He didn't really have any intention of working with Stryker at all. In other words, they disdain cooperation. And with his magical attainments, it is actually easy to control Wilhelm Stryker. But this is a waste of his divine power. What's more, he doesn't have a mind gem scepter now, and there is no small limit to controlling people's minds, and the time will not last long. So Loki didn't choose to directly control Stryker, but pretended to be a snake to cooperate with him, and lured him to Mutant's school. At this time, he can take the opportunity to return to Stryker's lair and control everything Wilhelm Stryker has. When Stryker returns, he will find that all his forces will no longer belong to him. After a sneer, Loki raised his footsteps, and suddenly, a phantom figure walked out in front of him. following Striker's pace. As for his true self, he left quietly and quickly disappeared into the night. Immediately afterwards, the sound of a helicopter sounded in the darkness. Just as Loki left and Striker led the soldiers into the school, a figure in a black trench coat quietly climbed over the wall and entered the school as well. Call. With a flash of his figure, he came to a high place. Looking at the soldiers sneaking into the school, Chen Hui's eyes flickered slightly, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Sure enough, it's time to act. During the few days of making Seal 2, Chen Hui didn't stay in the lab all the time, but sent someone to keep an eye on the situation here, especially Loki's whereabouts. It can be said that he is well aware of the situation here and Loki's whereabouts. Chen Hui was slightly surprised that Loki had contacted Wilhelm Stryker, but after thinking about it, he thought it was definitely reasonable. Wilhelm Stryker hated mutant deeply, since Loki wanted to attack Professor X, he would definitely not act foolishly alone, but use methods and use others. And Wilhelm Stryker is a good tool to use. Okay. Suddenly Chen Hui's eyes fixed. He saw Stryker, and Loki following Stryker. But when he saw Loki, he frowned, and his spiritual thoughts wrapped around chakra and spread out. Asking for flowers. Soon, a clear look appeared in his eyes. It turned out to be just a duplication phantom. From this point of view, Loki should plan to take advantage of Stryker's absence, go back and pretend to be Stryker, and take all his powers into his own hands. After Stryker destroys this place and returns with the brainwave machine, he will find that all his powers will no longer belong to him, and have all been taken away by Loki. What a ruthless Loki! But it's also because Stryker overestimated himself and dared to cooperate with Loki. This time he was completely blocked. Hey? Suddenly Chen Hui's mind flashed. If Loki can use Stryker, why can't he also use Stryker to achieve his goals? Soon a plan came to mind. Chen Hui smiled, followed by the figure, disappeared in place. At the same time, in the school, on each floor, soldiers sneaked in quietly. When I met a mutant student, I used an anesthesia gun to bring it down, opened the dormitory doors one by one, and swiped at those mutant children who were still sleeping, so that they were shot by anesthesia bullets before they could react. Followed by complete coma. At the same time, in a living room, sitting in front of a table, was a tall and strong man with a beard and a white vest, who looked like a wolf. With a drink in his hand, he was talking with a young man in front of him. This young man, named Bobby, was also a key member of X-Men in the future, Iceman. Suddenly Wolverine's ears moved. Bobby, wait a minute. Wolverine frowned, there is a situation. Is there a situation? Bobby wondered, Logan, why? Before the words fell, the pupils suddenly shrank. Suddenly, two soldiers appeared behind the door, with guns in their hands, about to shoot at him, but at this moment, Wolverine, who was hiding behind the door, suddenly stretched out her steel claws and rushed towards the two soldiers. Go! PSST. The steel claws of both hands pierced into the bodies of two soldiers respectively. The next moment, blood rushed out of the world. Chapter 116. Let's go! After knocking down the two soldiers, Wolverine waved his hand without any hesitation, letting Bobby Iceman leave here with him. And just as the two of them left, more than a dozen soldiers chased after the sound. In front of these soldiers is Stryker and the illusion of logic. Chase! Seeing the leaving figures of Wolverine and Iceman, Stryker waved his hand, his face full of coldness. Today, none of these mutants can escape, all of them should be caught quickly. Yes. When the soldiers heard the words, they quickly chased after them one by one. Especially the soldier who had been strengthened by Loki's ability, his figure moved extremely fast, he crossed a distance of 10 meters in the blink of an eye, took the lead, stepped up the stairs, and chased and killed Wolverine and the other two. But at this moment, 553 ping! Suddenly, a fist slammed at the turning of the stairs, hitting the face of the strengthening soldier, making his entire face almost shape-shifting, followed by his body suddenly reversing, knocking several soldiers into the air. Stryker was about to catch up aggressively, seeing this scene, his pupils shrank suddenly, and his footsteps stopped. With a dignified expression, he looked towards the dark place over there. Loki's illusion was that he frowned, looked towards the turning of the stairs, and seemed to notice something, and a gleam of light suddenly flickered in his eyes. Boom! Boom! The sound of footsteps came. Immediately after that, a figure stepped out from the slightly dark corner. He was wearing a black windbreaker, his face was covered, and only a pair of star-like eyes were exposed. This figure was Chen Hui. He looked at Striker and the others, with a smile in his eyes, and said slowly, "Okay, you can stop here, take another step, die." The last word death fell, and everyone felt a chill in their hearts. Striker frowned. He stared at Chen Hui, and asked with a gloomy expression, "Who are you?" Roar. Before he could finish his sentence, suddenly a giant roar resembling a beast came over. Striker was stunned for a moment, and saw the magic strengthening soldier who was blown away. His whole body was covered with flame cracks, his eyes were crazy, he looked at Chen Hui, as if he wanted to kill his father and take his wife. He rushed over. Chen Hui's eyes moved. So it was strengthened by Loki's magic. He sneered with disdain. Unfortunately, Loki's strengthening magic is not so easy to bear. He is using your body's life potential to burn your spiritual will, so that you can burst out with powerful strength, but, your strength is only for a while, and it is of no use to me. As he spoke, Chen Hui stretched out his fist. Boom! They clashed violently with the fists of the magic strengthening soldier. The strengthening soldier's eyes were crazy a moment ago, like a beast, but at this moment, his eyeballs popped suddenly, and his body trembled, looking at Chen Hui. Why? Pong! Before he finished speaking, his whole body exploded under Chen Hui's fist, his body was completely reduced to slag, and turned into flying ash in the flames. It turned out to be blasted to pieces with one punch. Seeing this scene, all the soldiers swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and a tremor appeared in Chen Hui's eyes. God! How could a person be blown apart with one punch and turned into slag? How powerful does it have to be to do this? You! Striker stepped back sharply, staring at Chen Hui like a ghost, without any hesitation, waved his hand, shoot. Bang 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 bang. The soldiers also pulled the trigger without any hesitation, and with the frantic roar of the submachine gun, countless bullets shot toward Chen Hui. Chen Hui neither dodged nor evaded. A chakra energy flowed on the surface of the body, and the strong energy, with a feeling of ice cold, spread around, causing the bullets to lose all kinetic energy in an instant, freeze in midair, and fall down. Click! Chen Hui's footsteps moved. Those bullets were stepped on the ground by him, and immediately shattered the city. Striker was stunned. Seeing this, all the soldiers were also stunned. And in the distance, Wolverine and Iceman Bobby, who heard the movement downstairs and peeped here, were also stunned. Especially Iceman Bobby, his ability is to control the ice. But now compared with the mysterious strong man on the stairs, his control over ice is like a child playing house, the two are not at the same level at all. Logan, who is this? Bobby asked in a daze, is there such a tough person in our school? You ask me, I ask who to go to, I just came back here not long ago. Wolverine said angrily, and immediately glanced at Striker, whose face was purple from the cold. Seeing this, he was stunned, as if at this moment, some painful memory was awakened in his mind, and his face suddenly became hideous. Bang! At the same time, the steel claws of both hands appeared, flashing a cold light. Logan, what's wrong with you? Bobby was taken aback. No. Nothing. Wolverine shook her head, something familiar to me, hey. Suddenly, as if aware of something, Wolverine's eyes flashed suddenly, she raised her steel claws and attacked forward. Clang! Suddenly, sparks flew in all directions. At the same time, in front of the two of them, a figure wearing a black windbreaker and covering his face walked out. Is it Chen Hui or who? It's you. Wolverine's eyes widened in disbelief as she looked towards the stairs. On the other side of the stairs, there was also a 5.9 figure in a black windbreaker. This is how the same thing? Wolverine, hey? Come with me. Chen Hui's voice sounded, this figure is his shadow duplication, which contains a part of his chakra and the bones of his hands and feet, and his combat power cannot be underestimated at this moment. As the voice fell, he grabbed with a big hand, directly grabbing Wolverine's steel claws. Use your strength. Boom! Wolverine was lifted up by him, and then thrown towards the stairs, and fell on the stairs with a bang, wrapped in a icy airflow, her whole body was frozen in an instant, unable to move. At the same time, Chen Hui raised his hand. Swish! Iceman Bobby was picked up by him from behind like a chicken, his figure moved, and the next moment he appeared beside the deity. Chapter 117. 1x. Bobby looked at Wilhelm Stryker, whose face was terrified and his face was purple from the cold, then at the group of soldiers who were almost frozen, and at the duplication of Loki's phantom with gloomy eyes. Finally turned his head to look at Chen Hui's side face beside him, swallowed and said, "Friend, are you from our side or their side? What do you say?" Chen Hui said calmly. Bobby rolled his eyes and said, "It should be from our side? After all, you are preventing them from attacking the school." Humph. If this guy was on our side, he wouldn't have done anything to us. At this moment, Wolverine was covered with veins, her eyes were shining like a wolf, she broke through Chen Hui's ice, and stood up. The steel claws of both hands shone with a cold light, one claw was pointing at Chen Hui, while the other steel claw was pointing at Stryker's side. The more he looked at Stryker, the more familiar he felt. He always felt that he should have known this person before, but he couldn't remember it for a while. Stryker didn't notice Wolverine for a moment. Instead, he looks at Loki. In the current situation, he can only rely on Loki's magical power to get out of trouble, but when he looked at Loki, his eyes were straightened, and he saw that Loki had disappeared without a trace, which made him almost spit out a mouthful of old blood. "I was so depressed that I exploded. Loki actually escaped. He was sold out. God. Stryker is also a character like an old fox. He actually doesn't fully believe in Loki, but he never expected that Loki would sell him so decisively. At this moment, he couldn't help feeling extremely regretful. Working with someone like Loki. Humph. Loki, do you think you can escape easily like this? Now that you're here, let's leave something behind." At this moment, Chen Hui snorted coldly, and looked towards the place where the illusion of Loki duplication disappeared. This duplication illusion, in order to be realistic enough, Loki contained a trace of divine power in it. Chen Hui can completely rely on this sliver of divine power to manipulate Loki, so naturally he will not let Loki's duplication phantom go so easily. At this moment, with a cold snort, the chakra energy in his body suddenly exploded crazily, causing the expressions of Bobby and Wolverine next to him to change. At this moment, they felt that their hearts were suffocating, and they looked into Chen Hui's eyes. Couldn't help feeling a little more shocked. Before, I didn't think how terrifying the mysterious master in front of me was. But feeling at a close distance at this moment, he immediately understood why there was such a strong fear on Stryker's face. Wow! Chen Hui took a step forward. At the moment of taking a step, the chakra energy on the body surged violently. This time, it was no longer the ice attribute chakra rolled out, but with the meaning of rumbling. At the moment of rolling out, countless flashes of lightning filled the air. Lightning chakra. The chakra of this attribute can spread much faster than the ice attribute, almost in the blink of an eye, it descends next to the illusion duplication of Loki that is about to disappear. Boom! Sweeping over suddenly, Loki's expression suddenly changed at the moment, and immediately a gloomy look appeared in Chen Hui's eyes. "This is Thor's thunder and lightning breath. Who are you? I remember the last time in the consciousness of the destroyer, you were also trying to stop me, and you have the divine power of that old guy Odin. There is also the thunder and lightning aura of Thor. Who are you?" Loki's startled and angry voice rang in Chen Hui's ears. This is a spiritual transmission, only Chen Hui can hear it, while others cannot hear any sound. "You guess." The corners of Chen Hui's mouth curled up, and the two words came out lightly. Hearing these two words, Loki's face sank even more, almost spurting out a mouthful of old blood, but he quickly calmed down, feeling the ferocity of the thunder attribute breath in Chen Hui's chakra energy, he couldn't help but see a trace of madness in his eyes. Intended to appear. Humph. Since that's the case, then I'll give you an unforgettable memory. Accompanied by a cold snort, Loki's trace of divine power left in the duplication of the illusion suddenly boiled violently, and immediately an astonishing wave of breath spread out, and a flame with a strange breath could be faintly seen burning in the air standing up, the burning spaces distorting. Seeing this, Chen Hui couldn't help squinting his eyes. As a descendant of Frost Titan, how does Loki's divine power contain the attribute of fire? Moreover, this kind of flame was extremely evil and domineering. Even Chen Hui felt a little terrified after feeling it, which made him feel a little bit worried. Originally, I wanted to use Pyro's genes to endow me with chakra fire attributes, but now it seems that this fire attribute in Loki is obviously more domineering. How about taking it away? Thinking of this, Chen Hui looked into Loki's eyes, and couldn't help but have some shining lights. Okay. Accompanied by the boiling of divine power, Loki's thoughts are rapidly disappearing in this phantom clone 717. But suddenly I felt a chill in my heart. Looking at Chen Hui, especially seeing the gleam of light in his eyes, I couldn't help but feel a chill in my heart, and even faintly felt a little terrified. This guy, is he planning on me? Accompanied by this last thought, Loki's residual thoughts here completely dissipated. But Chen Hui grabbed it with his big hand, and the countless lightning-type chakras that flew away were instantly distorted. The next moment, a sense of icy cold surged from it, and it turned into an ice-type chakra in an instant. The chakra caused Loki's divine power to turn into a flame that was frozen into an ice cube. It fell to the ground with a bang. But the strange thing is that even though it was frozen into an ice cube, the flame still did not disappear, but became weaker, still burning in the center of the ice cube, as if it wanted to break through the ice cube and explode. Call. As soon as Chen Hui moved his figure and grabbed it with his hand, the ice cube melted immediately and turned into a head file size. Seeing the flames rising from it, he couldn't help but be amazed. Interesting, this strange fire attribute can coexist with ice attribute, it seems that no matter what, I will get it. Chapter 118. Chen Hui's heart skipped a beat. Wow! Chakras of ice attribute and thunder attribute wrapped this ice cube, and at the moment of blending, there was a strange sense of harmony, and a force stronger than ever erupted, penetrating the ice inch by inch. Block, devoured towards that strange flame. Chi. The flame trembled and seemed to be resisting. But Chen Hui's chakra power was so strong that he couldn't resist it at all, and soon, in a flash, it was completely smelted into the chakra. It's still not enough. After swallowing this strange flame, chakra has a trace of fire attribute, but it is not enough. This ignition attribute will be exhausted soon, so Loki must be arrested, and his internal structure should be carefully studied, and his genes, spinal cord, etc. The liquid and so on are extracted and studied again, and then the fire attribute can be permanently integrated into his chakra. Just like studying the corpse of the Frost Titan King, it must be extremely detailed. After all, if you want ice and fire to coexist, you also need to integrate the thunder attribute, which is much more difficult, and it can't be done with just some blood genes. Shua! Just when Chen Hui was thinking. Suddenly there was a sound of breaking wind, with the scream of the air being torn apart, and a fierce force struck, causing Chen Hui's spider telepathy to surge strongly at this moment. But Chen Hui's complexion didn't change much. Raise your hand. Suddenly on the fist, 3 bone spurs pierced through the skin and turned into blades, flashing sharp edges. Clang! Collide directly with the 3 steel claws behind you. Sparks burst out. Wolverine's body backed away, with an inconceivable expression on his face. The force of the collision actually made his arm slightly numb, but this wasn't what shocked him the most. What shocked him the most was the mysterious person in front of him. A bone spur can actually protrude from the hand. Seeing this scene, Iceman Bobby shrank his eyes and was also surprised. 2 at BB+, who the hell are you? Wolverine let out a low growl, and looked at Chen Hui, eyes full of vigilance. At the same time, because Stryker was controlled by Chen Hui, all the soldiers gathered. Not far away, those mutant students who were not shot by the tranquilizer gun and escaped the pursuit of the soldiers gathered quietly. As they approached, the little rascal was among them. Seeing Wolverine and Bobby, she wanted to rush over, but a steel hand grabbed her. Little naughty, don't be impulsive. Depending on the situation, Logan and Bobby are not in any danger for the time being. Let's wait and see what happens. Colossus said on the side. Okay. Seeing a large group of soldiers encircling the stairs, little rascal nodded, although he was a little worried. After all, from the current point of view, the target of the soldiers seemed to be the mysterious man in the black trench coat, not Wolverine and Bobby. Now. On the stairs. Chen Hui didn't pay attention to Wolverine's words. With a glance, he saw dozens of soldiers surrounding him, and his thoughts couldn't help but move. Right now Loki must have returned to Stryker's secret base of the dam, and if there is no accident, Professor X is imprisoned there, and Stryker's son with strong spiritual power, Jason, so over there, Chen Hui it must be captured, and these soldiers can just be used by him. Moreover, his goal is not only that, but also to take away the brainwave machine of Professor X under the school. This thing is also an important tool for creating cosmic passages. It needs a lot of people to move it. These soldiers can also be coolies for him. So there was no hesitation at all, as the Liu's Huang battlesuit squirmed, a syringe gun appeared in Chen Hui's hand. PSST. Just a swipe directly at Striker's neck. Striker's expression froze suddenly. When the dozens of soldiers saw this, they became nervous immediately. They picked up their submachine guns and wanted to shoot Chen Hui, but they were afraid of hurting their Colonel Striker. They were in a dilemma when they saw a blue light in Striker's eyes. Shan, followed by raising his hand, making a gesture of obeying orders. At the same time, a majestic and cold voice came out of his eyes. Why are you all pointing guns at me? Why don't you catch those goddamn mutants? The soldiers looked at each other when they heard the words. But at this moment, an invisible mental wave suddenly spread out, which contained a trace of Chen Hui's illusion bioenergy program, which could make these soldiers forget everything that happened in a short time. Although it was only for a short time, these soldiers would wake up soon, but it was enough for Chen Hui to move the brainwave machine away. Next, after these soldiers wake up, he will control them one by one with the curse seal chip. There is no need to worry about the number of chips being insufficient, because he has already let Kaguya-kun automatically create the second generation of curse seal in the laboratory. Chip originally wanted to ask Hammer to hire a group of mercenaries to control it, but now there are Striker soldiers, so it happens to be used by him. Swish swish swish. After the soldiers listened to the order, they immediately chased after the group of mutant students who were hiding, causing their faces to change drastically, and they ran away quickly. Seeing this, Wolverine's complexion also changed. But he didn't run away, but his eyes flashed sharply, staring at Striker. He seemed to vaguely remember that this person was the man who injected adamantium into his whole body and brought him endless pain. Oh! Striker also noticed Wolverine at this time, couldn't help but flash his eyes, Qianyos, and said with a smile, Wolverine? Long time no see, sorry, I didn't notice you just now. You. Hearing this, Wolverine saw a series of painful memories flashing in his mind. He roared, stretched out his steel claws, and rushed towards Striker. But at this moment, Chen Hui stood in front of him. Go away! Wolverine let out a roar, the veins bursting all over her body, the steel claws of both hands suddenly raised, and then stabbed at Chen Hui. Clang! A bone spur popped out of Chen Hui's hand, and he immediately blocked it. Humph! Seeing this, Wolverine's eyes lit up sharply, and she snorted coldly, no matter who you are, I remind you, if you stop me again, I will break your bones in two immediately. Oh! Chen Hui laughed when he heard the words, you mean, whose bones are harder than me? Chapter 119. So what? Wolverine sneered, in his opinion, although Chen Hui's strength is great, but the bones are bones after all, can it be compared to his adamantium skeleton? Can it be compared to his steel claws? Clang! Wolverine slashed violently, and was about to cut off Chen Hui's bone spurs with force. But suddenly, he shrank his eyes suddenly. I actually saw a crack on my steel claws. How is this possible? Wolverine frowned, disbelieving. Chen Hui was not surprised by this at all. Although adamantium is extremely hard, its penetrating power is extremely strong, can it be compared to his vibranium bone claws with chakra blessing? Even without the blessing of chakra, it is not comparable to Wolverine's adamantium. Nothing is impossible. Chen Hui's voice came faintly. He looked at Wolverine. The huge strength, coupled with the extremely hard vibranium bone claws, forced Wolverine to retreat step by step. Wolverine, have you ever thought that one day, you will be covered in steel, the scene where it becomes liquid? As he spoke, Chen Hui urged the chakra, an anti-metal force, to spread out. Wow! Penetrating Wolverine's whole body, causing his body to shake violently, he saw his own steel claws actually became full at this moment, followed by drops of liquid metal falling from the steel claws as if ice cubes were melting. Fall down! At the same time, the adamantium 927 on the skeleton in his body suddenly became limp and distorted, there is a tendency to collapse. And once it collapses, the liquid adamantium will integrate with his blood, flooding his flesh and blood cells. No matter how powerful he is with self-healing ability, once the adamantium freezes again, he will be completely dead. For the first time, Wolverine felt death so close to her. His heart couldn't help trembling a little. Humph! Chen Hui snorted coldly, seeing that Wolverine's steel claws melted like ice, and his adamantium skeleton was about to collapse. He cancelled the anti-metal force. How? I'm convinced. As the anti-metal force receded, Wolverine's adamantium skeleton also recovered. He panted violently, looked into Chen Hui's eyes, and already felt a little frightened, and wanted to say something cruel, but he found that no matter how hard he worked, he couldn't even speak harsh words. He is scared. The opponent not only completely crushed him in terms of strength, but also completely crushed him in terms of bone hardness. In addition, the opponent could actually melt his adamantium. Fully crushed. How does this make him fight? Originally, he thought that he had only one nemesis in this world, and that was Magneto, but now he understood that he had another nemesis, and it was even more terrifying than Magneto. If the adamantium melts, he will surely die. After all, no matter how powerful his self-healing ability is, he still couldn't survive after adamantium solidified all the flesh and blood in his body. Swish! With a movement of Chen Hui's figure, he quickly took out the injection gun and injected it on Wolverine's neck. The second-generation chip of the curse seal penetrated into Wolverine's brain immediately. This second-generation curse seal is the enhanced control version spell seal chip specially made by Chen Hui for mutant. A grumpy mutant like Wolverine, even if he is defeated, will definitely not be under control. Chen Hui doesn't have that much effort to fool Wolverine into listening to him, so he directly uses the spell chip to control the matter, which is convenient very. Call. After struggling for a moment, Wolverine's eyes calmed down soon. He looked at Chen Hui with a respectful look on his face. Boss, those mutants resisted very fiercely. I can't catch them with my soldiers alone. What should I do now? At this moment, Stryker said to Chen Hui. Iceman Bobby had been shot by the tranquilizer gun and was under control, but the others ran extremely fast, and with the cover of Colossus, ordinary soldiers were no match for them at all. Don't worry, they can't escape. Chen Hui said calmly. He needs the abilities of these mutants, and he can't let them run away, especially the little rascals among them. This is the key to his ability to create a replicating ability type symbiote battle suit, and it is also the key to further enhance his ability to flow frost. The key to the battle suit. Thinking of this, Chen Hui's whole body chakra spread out, and under the blessing of the frost battle suit, a strong frosty breath permeated away, making the entire school ground, walls, pillars, etc., all places one layer frost congealed. Soon, it spread to the fleeing mutants, causing them all to froze, and then couldn't move. Even that fireman, under Chen Hui's powerful frost control, was frozen in ice. His flame was not worth mentioning to Chen Hui, it was too weak. After these mutants are frozen, it is much easier to capture them. However, Chen Hui didn't intend to kill these mutants by catching them. He didn't have such a boring idea, but informed Hammer to bring his experimental equipment. They took two and controlled Wolverine and Stryker respectively. These mutants can only temporarily stun them and extract their genes. Definitely, if there are some mutants with good abilities, Chen Hui will also consider making the second-generation chips for them on the spot. Such as Colossus, Little Rascal, Iceman, Burning Man, etc. 2 days passed quickly. Hammer has already brought some of his experimental equipment over, and extracted the gene and brought it back to his laboratory in Queens. Chen Hui is already familiar with this kind of work, and he finished it with ease. After those mutant students woke up, Chen Hui temporarily blinded their memory with illusion, and then let the 5 under control Wolverine, Colossus, Iceman, Burning Man, and Little Rascal run the school normally, and the students continued to attend classes. During this period, Chen Hui arranged some small hypnotic ability illusions around the school, allowing these students to be affected by the illusion hypnotic ability every day. After a few days when their memories recovered, they would only think it was a slightly hazy dream, and under the influence of the illusion hypnotic ability, they completely forgot about the attack on the school, even if Professor X spied on them in the future memory, and will not find any traces of cobweb horses. Although his illusion burst ability is not as strong as Loki, but through his bones, imprinting the illusion bioenergy program, people are always affected by the illusion hypnotic ability. After a long time, the effect it has is engraved in the bone, and the spirit is deep. From this point of view, it is much stronger than Loki. After doing all this, Chen Hui came to the underground base of the whole school. And there, that brainwave machine of Professor X is located. Chapter 120. A dazzling white light lit up all around. The location of the brainwave machine is very spacious, and the special electromagnet plates around it are combined without any gaps, turning into a large instrument with a circular outline, which looks very delicate. In front of him is an operation desk with a delicate electronic metal helmet on it. Chen Hui picked it up. By relying on this brainwave machine, the mental power can be amplified to, enough to use the mental power to control the space and open the way to God's domain, or more precisely, to the outer space, the cosmic channel. There was a bright light in his eyes. Chen Hui's goals have always been more than just a small Earth. God's domain, 9 realms. The entire galactic universe. Even in the depths of the universe where countless cosmic gods exist. Those places are the places where he really wants to make a fortune in the future. He really wants to see those legendary gods of the Marvel Universe, the Gods Group, and those existences against the sky, the devourer of the planet, death, eternity, infinity, annihilation, and so on, and even the higher dimensional infinite universe, the court of life. What kind of existences are there? Therefore, creating a cosmic passage leading to outer space is what he must do. Call. Chen Hui raised his helmet. Wear it on your head. The brainwave machine can amplify the spiritual power. I already have a strong spiritual power through chakra training, but obviously it has not reached the level of Professor X. It can only be used to protect and release some simple illusions. It's not enough to really attack and control the mind. I don't know how much my mental strength can be enhanced through this brainwave machine. Chen Hui was full of curiosity. After putting the helmet on, he pressed the switch. With the surrounding lights lighting up, the whole brainwave machine started to work. Moment. Chen Hui felt that the world around him became blurred. Indistinctly, he seemed to be able to see figures flickering around him, and there were many people's words lingering in his ears, so vague that he couldn't hear what they were saying. Gather your spirit. Seeing this, Chen Hui felt a little happy. It worked. The diffusion of his original spiritual power must rely on chakra, and even if it diffuses, it can only slightly perceive the existence of the people around it. It was impossible to hear them speak. Now that he can hear people talking, it proves that his mental strength has been enhanced to a very good level. But, still not enough. He can feel that as long as he continues to concentrate his spirit, his spiritual power will be magnified even more. Gather your spirit. Gather your spirit. Gather your spirits. A violent roar burst out from his throat. Chen Hui's eyes were wide open, veins appeared on his forehead, and the chakra energy on his body suddenly surged up at this moment, pervading the surroundings, causing waves of fluctuations, but when it touched the surrounding electromagnets, there was another wave. It suddenly bounced back, and then, as if being attracted, it rushed towards Chen Hui's head. Chi. The light on the console was flickering, and in the surge of chakra energy on Chen Hui's body, there was a tremor, and there was even a trace of electric current rumbling. But Chen Hui didn't seem to see anything. At the moment, he has completely fallen into the world where his mental power is amplified. As his thoughts become stronger and stronger, until finally, he can finally hear the specific content of a person's speech. And at this moment, the chakra energy rushing towards Chen Hui's head suddenly boiled, as if some inconceivable change had taken place, forming a kind of brainwave energy, which merged into Chen Hui's brain, making him at this moment, his consciousness, like a light bulb plugged in, suddenly brightened up. Chen Hui's eyes suddenly lit up. He has never had this feeling before. This kind of spiritual idea has been strengthened to the point where it seems to have turned into a body, like a soul, and the strange feeling that the soul astral is about to leave. What? Enjoying? Suddenly, my head hurts like a tearing pain. Chen Hui's complexion changed, he raised his hand and took off the helmet. He panted violently and looked around, only to see that the surrounding lights had dimmed, sparks were flying on the operating table in front of him. It seemed that the electric current was overloaded and there was a problem. This scene caused Chen Hui's face to change slightly, but he did not expect such a change after he put on the helmet and operated the brainwave machine. But soon his attention was drawn. Because he felt that after the mental strengthening of the brainwave machine this time, his mental strength hadn't weakened after taking off the helmet, but still maintained the same level as when Li just put on the helmet. That kind of intensity. This. Chen Hui was taken aback for a moment, and then a look of ecstasy appeared on his face. The brainwave machine actually has a permanent strengthening effect on his spirit. Looking at it this way, then I have to build a brainwave machine in my own laboratory. It will be bigger, more powerful, and more efficient than the current one. Chen Hui's eyes flashed brightly. Without any hesitation, he called Striker and Hammer over, and immediately took away all the equipment related to the brainwave machine. He wants to use this as a blueprint to build a bigger, more comprehensive and more effective brainwave machine, no matter how much it costs. Just when Chen Hui was acting in a hurry. Arlington, Pentagon, outside the super prison where Magneto is being held. A sexy and hot woman stepped on high heels and walked into the observation hall outside the Pentagon. She looked around seemingly casually, and suddenly she saw a fat man in a security uniform with big ears. With the corners of her mouth slightly raised, she followed the fat man. But when she walked halfway, she suddenly frowned, because a man suddenly appeared in front of her. "You are?" The woman looked at the man, her eyebrows frowned, showing an unhappy expression. "Introduce yourself." The man smiled slightly. "My name is Loki, Raven, right? I've been looking for you for a long time, little one." Chapter 121. The removal of the brainwave machine went very smoothly. Although Professor X's base is advanced, compared with Chen Hui, which has the support of the two super consortiums of Hammer Industries and Stark Industries, it still seems a bit stretched. With the addition of dozens of soldiers under Stryker, the relocation work is progressing faster. By the way, Kaguya has already produced 100 Curse Seal second-generation chips. 50 of them are used to control those soldiers, and among them are divided into 3 general directions: Speeder, Brute Force, and Defender. The Curse Seal 2 he injected into Stryker belongs to the Defender aspect. Greatly strengthen the hardness of Stryker's skin, which can ensure that this guy will not die easily, and only if he is not dead, can he do more 060 things. The other 50 second-generation Curse Seal chips are the enhanced control version chips specifically for mutant. After all, mutants originally have their own abilities, and they don't need him to strengthen, as long as they can strengthen their control. And under the improvement of Chen Hui, it can also block the perception of telepathy. Definitely, it's not that it's not beneficial to mutant at all. Under Chen Hui's research, he injected factors that are conducive to the enhancement of mutant ability, which can improve the growth of mutant children's ability. The mutant children of the second generation of Mantra, the future ability will grow stronger than usual. He found 50 quite capable children in the mutant school, and injected them with the 50 mutant-specific curse-sealed second-generation chips in the name of vaccination. Professor X's mutant school, there will definitely be more mutant children coming in the future, which will help me cultivate my own mutant army. Chen Hui secretly planned in his heart, in the name of my drive Chen Hui, I will invest in the establishment of a mutant charity hospital here. As long as I see a mutant child with potential, I will inject him with the second-generation chip of the curse seal. To be honest, Chen Hui's curse-printed chip is actually not the slightest harm. His curse seal chip will only give those mutant children great benefits, and even compared to the previous generation of curse seal, it will not force the injectees to brainwash them, they will be what they should be. It even has a protective and repairing effect on their neurological brain. Chen Hui's curse seal is just a seed. Let those mutant children have a good impression of him, a kind of kindness. Definitely, for people like Stryker and Wolverine, the second-generation curse chip must play a brainwashing effect, otherwise they will not surrender to him. Dr. Chen Hui. Suddenly a deep voice came over. Chen Hui looked over. It's Wolverine. Although this guy was injected with the second-generation chip of the curse seal, Wolverine's character is inherently rebellious, coupled with the powerful self-healing ability. The forced brainwashing of the second curse seal actually indirectly helped him restore his previous memory, which is equivalent to indirectly healed his brain damage. In this way, Wolverine originally appeared even more aggressive. But he is still loyal to Chen Hui. It's just that this original surrender has turned into a strange feeling of good gay friends, which makes Chen Hui also feel baffled. But good friends are good friends. Chen Hui didn't care about it, he looked at Wolverine and said, "What's wrong? Jean and Storm are back, and they've brought back a strange fellow." Wolverine took out a cigar and lit it. "Oh." Chen Hui's eyes moved. "Jean, that is Phoenix, she and Storm went to investigate the assassination of the president. Now that they have returned and brought someone with them, there is no doubt that they brought Nightcrawler back. Phoenix is one of Chen Hui's targets. Now that he is back, Chen Hui will naturally go to see what the legendary Phoenix looks like. As for his identity, it has already been arranged. Just meet under the name of Dr. Chen Hui." The people who came to meet and negotiate with Hammer Industries were attacked, and Professor X was taken away by a mysterious person. This series of things happened, and the impact was too great. Dr. Chen Hui, as one of the major shareholders of Hammer Industries, a leader in science, naturally it should be reasonable to come to condolences, right? Living room. Chen Hui was sitting, and beside him were Hammer and several bodyguards wearing sunglasses. "Qin, this is Dr. Chen Hui." Suddenly the door opened, Wolverine led Phoenix and Storm in, and there was a blue-skinned weirdo looking around timidly. It was obviously Nightcrawler Dr. Chen Hui. Qin looked at Chen Hui at first glance. She has heard of Dr. Chen Hui's name, but she narrowed her eyes when she looked at Chen Hui. She already knew about Professor X's disappearance on the way. Through mind reading, she knew that Professor X was with Han. The people from MO Industry disappeared after talking about the matter, so seeing Chen Hui at this moment, they were not polite at all. Swish! As soon as the mind moves, it is necessary to use telepathy to read Chen Hui's thoughts. Chen Hui smiled slightly. With his current powerful mental strength, it is not easy for Qin to read his mind. As soon as he moved his mind, he blocked Qin's telepathy. Okay. Qin's face froze slightly. She didn't expect Chen Hui to have spiritual strength, and she was not weak at 4.9. When she looked into Chen Hui's eyes, she couldn't help but feel a little wary. "Ms. Jean Grey, Hui." Chen Hui spoke, and he smiled slightly. "I have always believed that the most intelligent people in the world have powerful spiritual ideas, which makes them think faster. It also allows them to have the ability to prevent others from peeping into their minds." Then, Chen Hui walked up to Phoenix. "It just so happens that I should be considered one of the most intelligent people in the world, Ms. Jean Grey. You don't have to pry into my mind, because today, I'm here to tell you something. For example, you should be wondering, where did Charles go?" "Good." Qin nodded, stared at Chen Hui, and said coldly, "Please also ask Dr. Chen Hui to tell me." Chapter 122. Chen Hui smiled slightly, but didn't answer Qin's words immediately. Instead, he looked back at Hammer. Seeing this, Hammer walked over immediately, holding a special mobile phone in his hand. The entire body was transparent, and the images on it were displayed one by one. "Ms. Jean Grey, this phone is a chip integrated with brain-like electronic fibers. You can directly use telepathy to read the contents inside. This is specially made for you. After reading it, I think you should understand I'll change my attitude." Chen Hui smiled slightly. "Okay." Qin looked at the phone suspiciously, and hesitated for a while, but soon his curiosity overcame his reason, and he couldn't help but unfold telepathy, and infiltrated towards this special phone. In an instant, a wave similar to a brainwave entered her mind, allowing her to perceive everything displayed on this phone. Seeing this, Storm and Nightcrawler behind them all opened their eyes wide. They were very curious about this ultra-high-tech thing. They knew that the piano can read the thoughts in people's minds, but reading the contents of the mobile phone through telepathy 22, it's not easy. It was the first time. Chen Hui watched this scene with a smile. No one saw, at the moment, a bright light flashed faintly in his eyes at this moment. This mobile phone not only contains all the information about this incident, Loki and Loki's conspiracy, but also the location of Professor X, etc. In addition, there is another key thing. A fully energized Mantra 2.1 generation mutant strengthening control chip. After the mind was strengthened by the brainwave machine, Chen Hui realized that his chakra could be converted into a special kind of brainwave energy. Originally, it was difficult for him to control the mutant with telepathy, because telepathy's mutant can completely use the mind to forcibly block the penetration of the spell-sealed chip. But right now he has created a special 2.1 generation mutant strengthening control chip through his own chakra and the strengthening of the brainwave machine. Different from the original half-entity and half-energy, this 2.1 generation spell chip is completely energized. Once it touches the brainwave fluctuations of the telepathy, it can quickly integrate into the mind of the telepathy, and is specially used to control the telepathy. The mutant. Definitely, right now this is just an experiment. He specially made it for Qin to do an experiment, because it is fully energized, and the integrate is in a mobile phone with relatively strong electromagnetic current, and it contains a lot of information about Professor X, so even if Qin feels something strange, he will only think it is electromagnetic currents are at work. So, it doesn't matter even if it fails, Qin still won't have the slightest doubt about him. Laugh. Sensing all the information about Professor X contained in the phone, especially seeing that Professor X was captured by the legendary evil god Loki, she couldn't help but widen her eyes, feeling a little absurd. There is something about Loki, and S.H.I.E.L.D is completely out of touch with the outside world. It's kept secret, so Qin doesn't even know that Thor and Loki have appeared in this world. Although she thought it was absurd, the information Chen Hui gave included photos and videos, and the evidence was conclusive, so she had to believe it. Soon, Jean's mind was completely absorbed in these messages. No one noticed, even she herself didn't notice that there was a strange light flashing from her eyes. This ray of light was noticed by Chen Hui, and he couldn't help but narrow his eyes. It seems to have some effect, just don't know how big the effect is. Just as she was guessing, at this moment, Jean raised her head and looked at Chen Hui. Dr. Chen Hui, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. Jean apologized, thank you for the information, I think we are going to rescue the professor and Scott now, so, these days you first how about staying at school and talking about the mutant charity hospital you wanted to talk about when we get back. Chen Hui also put his plan to build the mutant charity hospital on his mobile phone. He is here as a representative of Hammer Industry to talk about things, so naturally he must have some purpose, otherwise he will be too perfect and look like he is just here to help, but he will be suspected no problem. Chen Hui smiled slightly, stretched out his hand and said, I know you will have doubts about my establishment of Mutant Charity Hospital, because I am a PH. Believe me, everything I do is based on mutants' interests. I believe you. Jean smiled politely, however, after we rescue the professor and Scott, you should talk to the professor. I have no right to decide such matters. Yes. Chen Hui nodded and said, but due to our mistakes, Charles and your boyfriend were framed, so in order to make up for it, Ms. Jean Grey, I think I can give you some help. As he spoke, he looked towards Hammer. Smiling, 870 followed Kinkin and the others and said, let me introduce you next. We, Hammer Industry, Special Operations Team specially for this rescue of Mr. Charles and Scott, Speed Man, Brute Force Man, Defender. Boom boom boom. As soon as the words fell, there was a rumbling roar in the air. Immediately afterwards, everyone saw that 3 medium-sized armed helicopters flew over, landed on the ground, and as the hatches opened, about 15 or 6 people descended from each helicopter. The first group of people moved nimbly, like cheetahs. Everyone in the group behind was extremely sturdy, and their steel-like muscles seemed to contain an explosive force. The last group of people are all big-bodied and round-skinned, and they look rough and fleshy. You can faintly see their skin, which is grey like a rock, and looks extremely hard. There are 50 people in total, all of them are heavily armed soldiers. In front of these soldiers, there was a slender woman, dressed in a red and white dress that looked like a knight, her pretty face was covered, only a pair of charming big eyes were exposed, and her long blonde hair was loose, making her look quite heroic. This woman is indeed Gwen. Chapter 123. 50 fully armed soldiers with distinctive features, together with Gwen's mysterious attire, immediately caused the entire mutant school students to look sideways and exclaim in amazement. Jean was also slightly surprised. She originally thought that the help Chen Hui mentioned was nothing more than some ordinary special soldiers. Ordinary soldiers are nothing to mutants, let alone evil gods like Loki, not to mention that according to the information given by Chen Hui, Loki knows a strange magic that strengthens others, and even knows many illusions. Manipulate the minds of others. So ordinary soldiers, no matter how many there are of no use at all, they will only be controlled by Loki. But right now these soldiers are very different. Jean subconsciously used telepathy to detect these soldiers, but found that it was useless. This made her very surprised, and she couldn't help but look at Chen Hui. Chen Hui smiled slightly. The Speed Warriors, Brute Force Warriors, and Defenders, these 3 teams of curse-sealed fighters, he spent a lot of time cultivating, because after controlling Stryker, he knew that there were not only soldiers guarding the dam base, but also there are many mutant guards he controls. And right now, he has become Loki's force and subordinate. In addition, Chen Hui feels that Loki has been evading S.H.I.E.L.D's arrest for more than a few months. He must not only be alone, but also has accomplices to help, because according to the information he received from S.H.I.E.L.D, Loki will be arrested several times. Tony and Captain America caught him, but suddenly disappeared, as if someone was watching him. So this time, he equipped his 3 teams of curse-sealed fighters with the most advanced weapons. For example, S.H.I.E.L.D originally used Tesseract to make weapons in the second stage, but they were made by Chen Hui, and now they are equipped for their curse-sealed warriors. In addition, Chen Hui also used the brainwave energy transformed by his own chakra to add an anti-psychic intrusion factor to the curse-sealed chips of these curse-sealed warriors, so Chen's telepathy will treat these curse-sealed warriors doesn't work. Definitely, that's not to say it doesn't work at all. When the power of mind invasion reaches a certain critical value, Chen Hui's mind invasion factor will be shattered, but this will also make the curse-sealed warrior brain dead, unable to control it at all. Under the leadership of Chen Hui, Chen and others all came to the school playground where the soldiers were. Who is this? Chen looked at Gwen, who was dressed very strangely and mysteriously, with curiosity on her face. Hi, let me introduce myself, I am the commander of these special fighters, you can call me Wen. Gwen smiled. Temperature. Jean tried to use telepathy to read Gwen's mind, but without a doubt, it failed. Can't help but feel a little depressed. She felt that her omnipotent telepathy was like a decoration when she came to Chen Hui's side, and it was of no use at all, not only to Chen Hui himself, but also to Chen Hui's subordinates, so she couldn't help but feel a sense of frustration. Inadvertently, when looking at Chen Hui, there was a feeling in his eyes as if he was always being pressed down by the other party, unable to turn over. This feeling became so strong that it finally turned into a pang of ghost resentment feeling. Sensing Chen's resentful gaze, Chen Hui was taken aback. Gwen also immediately caught this resentment. He couldn't help opening his eyes wide, looking at Chen Hui. Cough. Chen Hui coughed dryly. Who knows why Chen looked at him so resentfully, and he didn't bully others. Could it be because his curse-sealed 2.1 generation mutant strengthening control chip worked? But it seems that the effect is not quite as expected. Okay, since everyone is here, let's save the professor without delay. Chen Hui said, looking at Chen and the X-Men members behind him, which one of you wants to join me? Oh, don't look at me like this. In order to save Charles, I, Dr. Chen Hui, will do it myself. I'm polite in this way. After discussions with Chen and others, it was finally decided that the X-Men members who set out to rescue Professor X and Cyclops Scott this time were Piano, Storm, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Iceman and Pyro. After putting on the unique uniforms of X-Men, several people took the weapons that Chen Hui equipped them, and immediately flew towards the secret base of the Striker Dam where Professor X was imprisoned. Definitely, now this base already belongs to Loki. So for this operation, Striker must be brought along. In fact, Chen Hui has already included him in the Defender team, and there is this old driver who is familiar with the base to lead the way. Everything will be much more convenient, otherwise, you might get lost in the base with your eyes darkened. Boom. The flight took about half a day. A snow-capped mountain appeared in front of him, and in the depths, a dam could be seen across it, where Professor X was imprisoned. 3 armed helicopters landed and stopped. Wow! The 50 soldiers quickly lined up neatly, and at this time, Chen and the others also came down, looking at the tightly sealed dam in front of them, they couldn't help frowning. With so many of them, if they enter together, they will definitely attract the attention of the people inside. At that time, even if they enter, they will face the enemy's attacks and traps immediately. Now, well, how should we get in? Chen looked at Chen Hui. Simple. Chen Hui smiled slightly, and immediately looked at Gwen. Dear beautiful lady commander, I can rely on you now. Hearing this, Gwen gave Chen Hui a direct look. After walking to the front of the crowd, his voice suddenly became louder. Okay, everyone, follow my order and gather together. Wow! The soldiers were very obedient and gathered together in an instant. Chen and the others were a little more lazy, but watching the crowd gather, they also subconsciously walked towards the center of the gathering. Soon, everyone gathered. Seeing this, Gwen nodded in satisfaction, then raised her hands, and suddenly a force of space spread, enveloping everyone. The next moment. Swish! Everyone blinks away. Chapter 124. The moment everyone disappeared, in the base of the dam, there was a dark place like a laboratory, and in the depths, 2 figures in wheelchairs were slowly pushed over. Squeak! At the same time, the door opened. 2 figures walked in. One of the figures, wearing a green cloak and a golden helmet with 2 horns on his head, was Loki. Beside Loki, there is an old man with thinning and pale hair, wearing glasses, but extremely energetic eyes. This person is actually Wilhelm Stryker. Back off! Stryker waved. Yes. The 2 figures pushing the wheelchair walked away and disappeared into the darkness, which was very strange. Sensing the approach of Loki and Stryker, one of the figures in the wheelchair moved slightly, followed by raising his head, showing a weak smile. Mr. Oliver, your real name should be Loki, right? The evil god from God's domain, Thor's brother. Hehe, Charles, I have to say that you are very smart, and you can know my identity without telepathy. As far as I know, about my existence, but S.H.I.E.L.D gave 397 strict confidentiality. It can be seen that you, the leader of mutant, have the ability to. It's really not small. Loki laughed. It's a pity, you know it too late. Saying that, he looked at Stryker beside him. Colonel, it's up to you next. No problem. Stryker smiled slightly, then looked at the other figure in the wheelchair, Jason Raven. Suddenly Professor X's eyes lit up, looking at its kui. Be sober, Loki's magic control, you can resist it through willpower. Do you really want to be Loki's puppet for the rest of your life? The figure of Stryker paused. Looking at Professor X, suddenly blue scales surged all over his body, turning into the appearance of Mystique. In a pair of yellow eyes, at this moment, there seemed to be some faint confusion. Humph! Loki sneered. Charles, don't waste your time trying to use your will against my magic. Interesting idea, but even if your will is strong enough, what about adding this? As he spoke, he grabbed Mystique's hair and lowered her head, exposing her neck. Immediately, a dropper-shaped thing appeared in his hand. A drop of potion liquid drips. Laugh. It landed in a small indentation on the back of Mystique's neck, boiled slightly, and then soaked all the way in. Mystique took a deep breath. There is no longer confusion in the eyes, but a cold look. Looking at Professor X, the blue scales all over his body surged again, turning into the appearance of Wilhelm Stryker, shouting, Jason, it's time for your work to start. As the order sounded, the other wheelchair, with blue right eye, yellow left eye, and a hideous scar next to his head, and a sluggish face, moved his eyeballs slightly. Follow Ugh! Professor X let out a low cry, with a painful expression on his face, and wanted to resist, but he was wearing a brainwave suppressor on his head, so he had no power to fight back, and his face calmed down quickly, but there was a gleam in his eyes. A look of bewilderment. It seems that the consciousness has entered another illusory world. Humph, no matter how powerful the mental power is, it's just a mortal. Seeing this, Loki showed complacency on his face, and immediately looked at Mystique. Let's go and meet your old friend, Mr. Magneto. Hey! Just about to lift his footsteps, his eyes narrowed suddenly. Loki's face darkened. Someone broke in, now. Chen Hui over there. Using Gwen's space transfer, spy, ability, they easily entered the base, followed by Stryker leading the way, almost seemed to be overwhelming, and quickly occupied 60% of the entire base area. Only the deepest 40% of the area remains. And there is also the place with the strictest defense. Once it attacks, it will immediately attract Loki's attention. But it has reached the current point, and it doesn't matter if it attracts Loki's attention. Under Chen Hui's command, everyone is brave and diligent, as if they have already practiced thousands of times, and continue to break through deeper areas with great efficiency. Qin, Storm, and Nightcrawler followed all the way, as if in a dream. They all stayed. Especially Nightcrawler, when he saw that Gwen transferred 50 or 60 people to the base in an instant, he was already in a long-term stunned stupor, looking at Gwen, as if he was looking at God. Human. God. There is someone in this world who is more perverted than him. Thuxon believes that he can be so perverted to such an extent that his heart trembles in horror. Compared with the other party, his own ability is like a scumbag to his grandma's house. And Qin looked at Chen Hui, and couldn't help but feel even more resentful. She found that by Chen Hui's side, not only her ability was useless, but even the X-Men members of her team could not command at all, because she had no chance to command at all. All of Chen Hui's orders were two quintessential yes, and whether it is the soldiers or the X-Men members, they can cooperate perfectly with Chen Hui. Once the order is given, it will be carried out immediately without any delay. Relying on his superb command and powerful inside ability, Chen Hui forcibly turned this team of 50 or 60 people into one. If it weren't for the high quality of Qin and others originally, they would hardly be able to keep up with Chen Hui's rhythm. Stop! Suddenly Chen Hui raised his hand and made a gesture. Wow! Everyone stopped in unison. Chen Hui squinted his eyes, and the chakras seemed to turn into threads, spreading out, and soon explored the depth of the next 30% of the area. It seemed that many people were moving quickly, as if they were gathering. Feeling this, Chen Hui knew in his heart that Loki should have sensed their invasion. Thinking of this, Chen Hui waved his hand. There may be a more difficult battle next, are you ready? Ready! Everyone roared, with awe-inspiring fighting spirit. Okay. Then. Next, join me and start the real battle. A smile curled up on the corner of Chen Hui's mouth, the show is about to begin. Chapter 125. Hammer, you take 6 speedsters, 5 brute forces, 5 defenders, Iceman Bobby and Burning St. John to the left side of the road. Wolverine, you take 8 brute force fighters, 3 speed fighters, 6 defender fighters, Colossus and Nightcrawler to the right fork. Others, follow me and attack straight ahead. Go! 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 Chen Hui ordered quickly. But after experiencing the previous actions, everyone, including Qin, Storm, and Nightcrawler, have gotten used to Chen Hui's fast pace, without any hesitation. According to Chen Hui's deployment, they disappeared within almost 3 seconds. In place, he quickly attacked towards the deepest part of the dam base. This guy! Qin ran behind, looked at the leader Chen Hui in front, her eyes flickered strangely, she didn't know why she suddenly seemed to be telepathic with Chen Hui just now, but the moment he gave the order, her body involuntarily moved forward. To act. This scene was so subtle that no one else noticed it at all. She didn't even realize it herself at first. But he quickly realized that although he couldn't stop his body, there was something strange on his face. Why is he so sensitive to Chen Hui's orders? And also, why do you have to stare at each other? Thinking of this, Qin's complexion couldn't help but become weirder, and she couldn't help but force herself to turn her head away. At this moment, her complexion actually turned slightly blush. Perhaps even Qin herself didn't realize that since returning to Xavier's school, after using telepathy to check the special mobile phone given by Chen Hui, in her mind, until now, the figure of Chen Hui has always occupied her mind. Every question and everything you think about is related to Chen Hui. Perhaps, the 2.1 generation chip that seems to have no effect has actually already had some effect, and the effect, like Wolverine, has undergone a mutation. Chen Hui, have you noticed that Qin has been staring at you? Chen Hui was investigating what enemies were in the depths of the dam, besides Stryker's men, whether Loki had brought back some abilities, when suddenly Gwen's voice came. Okay. Chen Hui turned his head, looked at Gwen, and asked strangely, what? Keep staring at me. He couldn't help looking at Qin, only to see that Qin Qiao's face was a little red, and she looked to the side, obviously she had just turned away just now. Seeing this, Chen Hui couldn't help but mutter in his heart. What kind of plane is this phoenix doing? At this moment, a tingling feeling suddenly hit my mind, it was spider telepathy. Chen Hui frowned. Spider telepathy is very strong, it seems that the opponent should not be weak, he has already learned some information about mutant fighters from Stryker, those are Stryker's original subordinates, such as the Death Girl who has a similar ability to Wolverine, should have been taken by now. Loki takes control. But the strange thing is, Chen Hui, through spider telepathy and his mental power which has been several times stronger, can't sense the appearance of the coming person. This made Chen Hui's gaze fixed, and his heart became suspicious. Among Stryker's original mutant subordinates, it seems that there is no existence that can shield the spiritual exploration. Could it be that Loki recruited it? Boom! Just as Chen Hui was thinking, the earth trembled suddenly, as if an earthquake had occurred. At the same time, Chen Hui's chakra felt a huge physical force twisting the air and blowing a violent wind. It blows over here. Whoa! The violent wind blows everyone's hair flying. They couldn't help but stop and looked forward in amazement. There was a huge figure walking over there. Every time they took a step, the ground trembled slightly. It can be seen that there is such a huge power in this figure's body. Strength? Is it a green titan? Storm couldn't help guessing when he saw this figure. Asking for flowers. Green titan? Hee, impossible. Nightcrawler laughed dryly. If the green titan is really coming, then they are still knitting, and the business is to run away quickly. Chen Hui's eyes narrowed slightly. This figure contained enormous power, which made him feel a bit like a green titan, but he knew that it couldn't be a green titan at all. Banner should be with Tony now, it's impossible to come to here. But since it's not a green titan, who else can give him the feeling of facing a green titan? Wow! The shadow dissipated, and finally this figure was completely revealed in front of everyone. This is a guy so strong that it makes people feel extremely shocking. His muscles are like granite, one by one, you can feel the power contained in it, it is absolutely explosive. Zero compared with this guy, Chen Hui's brute force is as thin as a baby. In addition to the explosive muscles all over his body, this super strong man is wearing a set of crimson armor all over his body, and a red helmet on his head, only revealing a pair of eyes and a mouth. Eyes burst into a bright light, the corner of his mouth grinned in a war-thirsty smile, and a pair of huge fists collided with a boom. Are you the raiders that Lord Loki said? Very good. Very good. Now, I finally don't have to sleep so bored. Who are you? Jean frowned, and she found that her telepathy was unable to perceive this person's mind. It is obvious that this person's crimson helmet has the function of isolating spiritual exploration. Who am I? The super strong man grinned, Beauty, remember my name is Juggernaut. Boom. As soon as the words fell, he rushed out suddenly, like a red tank, crushing towards the crowd with the momentum of thunder, although his body looked clumsy, but the speed was extremely fast, which made his momentum, at this moment, it was extremely ferocious. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.